Kaboom. Freaking kaboom. Something wonderful happened yesterday. This is going to be one of my favorite videos to make, at least in terms of the political aspects and all these things. I was giddy last night. So let me break this down because I have a pre-introduction to go, and I already made an hour-long video. So I made a video that was involving some of this stuff with a debate, and I just had realized that Trump has to go. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but I kind of realized at a different level. Like, Trump is the center of all these problems. If Biden goes, Trump is still there. But if Trump goes, this whole thing, this whatever's been going on, I wasn't looking forward to the debate at all. I mean, you'll hear it. I have an hour-long video that'll be at the end of this thing. And it's kind of a prequel that's at the end. And the debate is a big part of it. But it's all of it. And I decided to say, all right, I'll push the video till today, and I'll just put the debate in front of it. And I wasn't looking forward to the debate at all. It's kind of like low energy about it. And, you can hear all that. And then that happened. Right? And to Trump's credit, and, I'm down on Trump. I'm not, whatever. This isn't a pro-Trump video. But to Trump's credit, he put out a masterful performance. His best debate performance. And, he delivered for Trump and Trumpers. And again, Trump sucks and there's no, whatever. But he delivered a masterful performance. And Biden did what he did, right? And it was like when Trump won. It was the same kind of thing. Like, I was giddy that night. Not that I voted for Trump or wanted Trump, but the media imploded afterwards. So I had taped the CNN reaction. When I saw what was happening, I'm like, how are they going to spin this, right? How are they going to spin frickin' this? And they didn't, for the most part. They tried a little bit. And I'm going to rip that apart. I'm going to show the post-debate reaction from CNN. And then I'll get to MSNBC, too, because I'm sure theirs is just as bad. I'll do that tomorrow in a different video. Just to, But it was, like Christmas morning. It was wonderful. Because they did something. Well, let me start here. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I did psychological assessments. And, I was a counselor for a while, clinician. And I wasn't good at listening to people whine about their problems. Like, I wasn't good at being a therapist. I wasn't good to sit there and listen compassionately as people whined about their miserable lives or whatever. But what I was good at was personality assessments, which you guys can see here. I'm good at reading people. I was good at using the DSM-5 and diagnosing them, using assessment measures, of course, the spiritual stuff I do. And, you guys see it translates here, right? That I'm good at all that stuff. And you don't need to be good at that type of thing to diagnose somebody with frickin' dementia, right? When grandpa starts putting his shoes in the refrigerator, you say he's got dementia. As people start getting older and their personality changes, it's, just like, is it hard for you to say, oh, that person's drunk? Is it hard to see that a person is drunk? No. Or stoned or, on some sort of other type of medication. The videos, I took, both of my kids got their wisdom teeth removed on the same day. And the car trip home was hilarious because they were drugged out, right? And so, when somebody is inebriated and their mental faculties isn't working the same, it's easy to see that. It's the easiest thing to see, right? Somebody's staggering, drunk, or whatever it might be. And when somebody you've known for a long time has a decline in their mental function and starts exhibiting signs of dementia, everybody in the family picks it up. Even when they're in denial of it, which they will be in some cases, you pick it up. It's not hard to see. And in 2019, I started to cover the presidential primaries, and especially the Democratic one. And it was clear that Joe Biden had dementia, and I'll show you a few little clips about it. We already know. And I said, this guy's got dementia. This is going to be a problem because it doesn't get freaking better, right? I've been covering the heartfulness cult, my Sahaj Marg meditation that I do that turned into a cult called Heartfulness. And I said, not only to my viewers, but people who do it, the system, that there's no reformed cults, right? It isn't, oh, that used to be a cult, right? Once you're a cult, you're on a path towards, the consequences of being a cult, right? There's no reforming it. There's no making it better. There's no any of those things. And so it's like that, even worse with dementia, because it's only going to get worse, right? And when you're talking about the presidency, a high-stress job, it's going to blow up in your face. But the liberals and the media and the Democratic Party rigged the election, the primary against Bernie Sanders, and pushed this guy, Joe Biden, even though he was only mildly popular, a career failed politician that ran for president 4 times. And then they decided to push him. And then, all the stuff they did with COVID to hide him away and make him the president. And no one really knows why. I speculate that he was such a puppet, they could push through anything they wanted. Because he was like just a meat puppet. He was just sitting there, and he would do whatever his handlers told him to do. And he is so corrupt and all these things that they owned the guy. I mean, that's my only explanation for what they did. But at some point, it was going to implode. And it did last freaking night. It was going to be a point where everyone admitted he had dementia. And and last night was the night. And it was just, I mean, in terms of the show, and I don't care how fake it is. I don't care how staged it is. I don't care anything about that. It was a wonderful episode. Something that I was, only trying to get through the debate. And when he walked out on stage, I'm like, tonight's the frickin' night. Tonight is the effing night, and it happened, and it was beautiful. Okay, so let me get into the pre-introduction here, and then on the other side of that, I'll start the analysis of the CNN pundits falling apart and the Democratic Party falling apart. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I had to do this pre-introduction. I forgot to say, please subscribe, please like the videos, do whatever you got to do. YouTube is doing their thing to me and so many other people. Their thing being shadow banning and not gaming the system against us. So every little bit helps. I'm going to have to remind myself to say these things. A couple of viewers said, yeah, it's good that I do this. So you guys are aware, Thursday, June 27th today, about 3 or 4 videos ago, I covered how bots were saying that I was being, that I was telling them that I was shadow banned, and they were like, well, we don't shadow ban. And I'm like, well, your policies, right? And I explained, it's a whole thing, right? How their policies shadow bans people, not just truthers. And I've got so many people have come back from years ago who are now getting notifications, right? Who are subscribers who YouTube stopped notifying. And here's 2 people just this morning. Yeah, I used to listen to your videos in 2018, LOL. I don't know why it's funny. You popped up back in my feed yesterday or the day before. And then somebody else wrote, so the exact same thing happened to me. Weird. Well, it's not weird because they were shadow banning me. And I said, hey, you guys are freaking shadow banning me. And they said, no, we're not. And then they started notifying my subscribers. And so apparently this happens. Other people said that they've complained to YouTube, and all of a sudden, some of the things that they were doing, I mean, they can obviously adjust some of the, most of it's algorithms, machine learning, and bots, AI stuff. And, there's nothing they can do about it, but obviously they can do something, because I've gotten, I would say, 50 comments of people who have said they had forgot all about my channel, and all of a sudden they got a notification out of nowhere. Or they saw a video recommended in the sidebar. And those are the people who have commented. So if there's 50 people commenting, how many other people have received notifications and either didn't pay attention to them or didn't notice them, or, went to spam, or, whatever else, right? Okay, so the other thing is I'm going to review this trailer. I like to, make fun of trailers, and it's a trailer, I don't know, it's a Christmas trailer with The Rock and Captain America. And it sucks, and it's hilariously bad. I posted the clip that I made, and they copyrighted it, and I'm going to try to fix it this time around as I edit. But if I can't fix it, I'm just going to put that video up, the whole video up for members, and then cut out that part for everyone else, because I just can't spend my hours of time just editing little bits of it, right? Which is what ends up happening. I always talk about when people copyright trailers is stupid, but anyway, you'll hear all that coming up. So if you see it, that means I fixed it. If you don't see it, it's for members. I'll put it on just the members only part of the channel or whatever. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to do full coverage of the first third of the debate. Mostly the beginning. I mean, all of it I'm going to show you. We'll go through it. It's great. There's not, it's great. But this was their reaction. So these are the pundits. And I was like, well, how are they going to spin this? Because they've been pretending he's not. In the video I already made yesterday, I had a clip of Don Lemon's. And I'll show a little bit of that clip probably somewhere in here where I'm covering everything. Where he's talking to Jankai Yangar, who's like, you got to get rid of Biden. You're giving up 10 points just because, he wants Trump to lose, but he's like, whatever. And Don Lemon is saying, well, Biden's the best option, and he's denying his senility, which all these people were before the debate. So every one of these pundits, except for one guy apparently, who was on the fence, everyone else was denying his senility.
Making their way off the CNN debate stage, looks like Jill Biden, the First Lady, has come out, former President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign.
So she has to help him walk off, which I'm sure you've already seen. She said, you did a good job, Joe. You answered all the questions.
The earliest presidential debate ever, now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on what those voters might make of it from our political professionals.
He's like, he's staggering.
From our CNN Flash poll and swing state focus group. We'll be talking to surrogates, including Vice President Harris, getting fact checks from our Daniel Dale, and new reporting from inside both campaigns. With me here, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, Kate Bedingfield, David Urban, Van Jones, Alyssa Farr Griffin, and Newsnight anchor Abby Phillip.
They tried to rig the thing against Trump, and it backfired epically. It actually helped Trump, which I'll get into. There's so many sub-stories that are wonderful here. But he couldn't make it down the stairs, and these guys were bummed. Like they were trying to save Biden, but he couldn't save himself.
David Axelrod and CNN Chief National Correspondent John King. John, let me start with you. Your thoughts.
Anderson, this was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party.
Boom. That's when I knew that this was so bad they could no longer look at you in the eye and say, he's not senile. And I'm going to show you, like I had a clip where they were trying to make Trump look senile because he couldn't remember names. And, they try to say, well, he's senile, right? And Trump is old, and Trump is angry and revengeful, and he's all these things, right? Like he's just not in a good space to be president. But the whole presidency, like what made 2016 special to me was that I always knew the presidency was a joke. And they hold it up like it's some wonderful thing. That's how they present the president. But every president that I've seen in my lifetime, it's been a joke and a fake and a fraud and, not the kind of leader they're pretending they're supposed to be, right? And it's been that way throughout history. Our history, world history. The presidents aren't great men. They might rise to the occasion in certain, spheres of activity, but they're not. They're not great people. And politicians aren't great people. They're not evolved. They're not saints. They're not, people to be build statues of and stuff. And so Trump just tore all that stuff down by being Trump. Not that he was a good president, but that he was irreverent, right? And this thing with Joe Biden was, a moment where, like all this BS they've been saying about him now for 4 or 6 years, like just was exposed.
It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists. It involves elected officials. It involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Others are other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say in moments in the debate later, the president got better.
Yeah. So I want to address this first. I said this to my wife during the debate. You only have to appear incoherent once as potential president, right? You only have to have one mental breakdown. But we saw this with Hillary Clinton when she fainted on the campaign trail. And they lowered the standards so much. And of course, they did this with Fetterman as well, where you didn't even have to show up at your job, could be depressed and suicidal, and need devices just so you could comprehend what's going on around you. And, you know, they've lowered the standards. But if you have dementia, like one dementia episode, and you get disoriented, they take away your freaking license, or they should, right? You show signs of dementia, you can't drive anymore, and your family shouldn't let you drive because you might hit a kid, or you start hallucinating, you start showing signs of mental breakdown, and you shouldn't have codes to the nuclear. I mean, this is so bad, right? And I'll say this exact same thing again somewhere when we're watching the debate, because when you see this incoherent MNFer, you just have to be incoherent for a minute in the debate for president, and people realize, oh, this guy can't do it. But after what happened even with Fetterman and Biden, they've made it so like, okay, well, if you have some good moments, you can still be president. No, you have some lucid moments. That happens. That happens to people with dementia. That doesn't mean you get to be president, right?
Got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates. Let me be clear. None of them, and a lot of Republicans, don't think Donald Trump had a great night.
He had a great night. He impressed. I was so down on Trump, and I'm still down on him. But he delivered. This was Trump's best performance. There was no doubt about it.
Donald Trump broke the fact check machine more than I can count tonight.
Yeah, you're fact check. Like that's, he wasn't pooping his pants and drooling on himself. That's all, he would have had a great night just if he didn't do those things.
That will be on the record as we go forward. He refused to answer some very specific and direct questions about his conduct, about January.
Which is what was masterful about his performance.
6th and what all. So that will be dealt with out there. And sometimes there's a parallel universe between the political elites and the American people. It'd be nice to see what the voters say. But I can tell you.
The voters say you guys have hid this guy with dementia. This isn't about whether Joe Biden can be president or not. This is about get rid of this guy now. He's got dementia. This was about, holy F, you can't have this guy have the nuclear codes. This guy, what have you guys been doing? Like this guy, Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's for the last 2 years or so of his presidency, but they hid him away. But what American people saw last night is that they've been lying to us. They know the guy's freaking, he's worse. He was probably, not, this is just normal for him, but he has even worse moments. But he fell apart because he can't do it anymore. He can't do any part of the job. Like he is gone mentally. And you can see it. I was talking about this, just the way he walks lately. He's got like that Thorzine shuffle type of, like he's nobody home, deer in the headlights, right?
It started minutes in. It started with the first couple of answers, and it has continued throughout the night.
It started when he walked on the stage, and I'm like, uh-oh. Bad night for JoJo.
My God, oh my God, oh my God. So what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected officials, saying we have a problem.
And just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that I am hearing from Democrats is not like anything that I have heard in this campaign so far. And a lot of it has to do with, first of all, there was a deep frustration about Trump's lies. I mean, he lied a lot tonight. Right. But the problem for Biden was that Trump was able to take sometimes incredible falsehoods and turn them into some kind of argument, whereas Biden's answers were, in a lot of cases, not coherent, deeply problematic, that he was not able to take pretty straightforward answers and answer them to the American public, and then also at some points bringing things up that teed up Trump attacks. So
yeah, there's a great moment where he said we have to destroy whatever he said, and Trump just. They saved him. Dana, whatever her name is, and Jake Tapper tried to save Biden, but it set Trump up for one of his zingers. Because there's two great moments in the beginning and half of the debate for Trump one where, Biden says something about destroying Medicaid. He just babbled on, and he just and they bailed him out. The time limit, and Jake Tapper, I think, bailed him out. But it set Trump up for a zinger. And there's another thing where Biden babbled incoherently, and Trump's going to say, I didn't understand what the F he just said, which was Trump's, the first third of the debate. I didn't watch all of it yet. But, the first third of the debate was, masterful and wonderful.
A real concern here tonight that there's been some real damage done that cannot be
there has been. And
undone. Biden solidified.
He's senile. They're not, and they don't say it. One guy kind of says it here. Two guys almost are going to kind of say it. But this is confirmed. The guy has dementia. You guys all saw it for years. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew it and didn't say it or didn't want to believe it or whatever, and they covered it up. The guy has had dementia since 2019, probably even before that, but we saw it in 2019. It's got significantly worse, right? And you guys they're not even saying it, right?
The perception among voters, but especially among his base, they were hoping that tonight would be a game changer. They are now seeing a president who is in the White House, who they do not necessarily believe can do this for another 4 years.
He can't do it now. He shouldn't be president now. Not 4 years now. Not reelected now. Not campaign now. They should take him out of the White House now. He has dementia, and he's the president. I said years ago, you're talking to your Democratic friends, ask them, would they want that guy driving their kid's school bus, right? If this was a school bus driver, they would have to fire him because he might kill kids, and he's the president. It's even worse, right? And he did kill kids when they droned kids in Afghanistan, which I'll bring up here because it's one of my things to bring up, right? And again, they pushed this guy out. This isn't about Biden. This is about Biden's handlers. It's about the Democratic Party, and it's about the liberal media. Your job is to make sure a guy with dementia doesn't get frickin' to become president. But you didn't do it because you hate Trump, right? Your hatred of Trump and whatever else is going on in the show blinded you to the elephant in the room that you were pushing a guy that had dementia as president. A guy who sucked as a politician, who got caught plagiarizing the first time he ran for president. He had just had the snoozling groping problem. He swore these senators in, and he was mauling their kids and wives and groping them and sniffing them and snoozling them. I mean, he was a creep, and they covered that up, and they covered up he had dementia, and they pushed this guy through and talked about him in glowing terms, and everything was about how bad Trump sucked, and they made their universe about Trump, and they pushed a guy who had dementia because they thought he was the best chance to beat Trump, or because he was the most puppeted, or whatever reason they pushed him. And at some point, the dementia was going to get so bad they couldn't deny it, and that was last night. And it was epic. So let's just show you. Let me go back to 2019. We're going to finish this up because it's great. This guy and this guy almost are saying he has dementia. They're basically implying it. The rest are sort of, still like, oh my God, he did do this. It's amazing that they're even saying that because it was so bad. But I knew they would, right? Especially this woman here. She's a disaster in this thing. Okay, so this is a town hall, right? And this guy's going to challenge Biden on, I think, his son Hunter and some other things, Ukraine. And Biden's going to lose it. And it was at this moment the Democratic Party should have said, all right, who else we got? Right? Who the F else do we have?
And that's your son over there. He get a job and work for a gas company, but he had no experience with gas, did nothing. In order to get access to the public, for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is. So
You're a damn liar, man. That's not.
You're a damn liar, man. Which was clear. Hunter Biden, we all know now, that's true. But he loses it. He loses it. It's the way he handles this thing. This is all old people here, right?
true. And no one has ever said that? No one has proved that?
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no.
They try to steal the microphone. And he makes a mistake of saying, let's keep on going.
Let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape line, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take an IQ test.
Okay, so he said, let's do a push-up contest. Let's run. Let's do a IQ test. Right? So he's challenging this guy to push-up contest and an IQ test. And that's a mistake, right?
Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any
Okay, so now he's a convicted felon, his son. And, all of it.
occasion, and no one has ever said it. Not
I didn't
one.
say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
Get your words straight, Jack.
But I hear on MSNBC. All
You don't hear that on MSNBC. You did not hear that at all. What you heard. Look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do, but look, fat. Look, here's the deal.
He goes, look, fat, look. He calls the guy fat as a nickname. He's nicknamed this guy fat, which is the kind of thing that Trump does, right?
Here's the deal.
And so he imploded, right? This was a moment where he imploded. Under the little bits of pressure for some 70, 80-year-old guy who asked him some legitimate questions that all turned out to be true. So he imploded. And this is, again, early signs of dementia. He had already exhibited dementia on the campaign trail. But then he does a follow-up interview with NPR. And this woman is very soft-spoken. She asks him about this exchange here.
Attention for it. A man stood up and started throwing false allegations your way about your son Hunter Biden and his work
They're not false, honey.
in Ukraine and your work as vice
Pumpkin.
president then in Ukraine. And you responded by calling him a damn liar. And then you challenged him to push-ups, and then you asked him for an IQ test.
No, he came along, he said he's entitled to do this. He said, you're too old. He said, you're too old. I can't vote for somebody as old as you. I said, okay. And he was challenging what kind of shape. So I kidded.
Look at the guy. Look at him back then, right? His clueless eyes, like he's lost. You can just look into somebody's eyes and say, oh, nobody's home. And it's gotten way worse, right? But this was back in 2020, early 2020.
He said, want to do a push-up contest? I was joking. Look, I'm in pretty good
Which is
shape.
what Donald Trump says a lot. Hey, you can't take a joke. I was joking.
No.
But the point I bring it up.
And then he gets mad. Look at him. He gets angry, points in her face.
Compare me to Donald Trump.
But people
Don't
did.
do
At the
that.
town hall I was
No,
just
they
at.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
Well,
they said to me, the woman you met at the end, 94-year-old Mary, said to me, I was so disappointed in him. This is a direct quote. That is not the Joe I know. He sounded like Donald Trump in that clip.
Well, look, what Donald Trump says, he makes fun of people. He belittles.
So first he played off like he was just joking, but he clearly wasn't. He was upset. He was triggered. And then she presses him on and compares him to Donald Trump, and he gets in her face, points his finger, and gets angry. You can see the anger in his face. He can't control his emotions. He can't control his anger. This happened again where he's getting into a fight with a guy over gun control. Here's this thing in a factory. So this is an auto worker in Michigan where Biden, needed to win, right? And this auto worker is concerned about Biden's Second Amendment policies. And Biden, let's just watch. He says, you're full of boop. He said, you're full of boop. That's how he deals with the person. This is when they knew they couldn't run him out on campaign. This is why they had to do COVID the way they did it. That's why they had to shut down everything. Because they couldn't run this guy. He couldn't campaign, right? He just shuts the person. Now, this is someone who works for him who's trying to get Biden out of there before he does something stupid. He puts his hand in her face and says, "Shush."
Support the Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. From the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my son's hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own anyway. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds? No. I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that. It's a viral video like the other ones you're putting out that are simply a lie.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Take the AR-14s and look at it.
AR-14. Later he says 15, but you know.
Hold on. Hey, let's get one more.
He says, "Don't try me, pal."
A lot of guys wanted.
He also said there, you didn't hear it, but it's, you want to step outside.
I'm not worried.
And he says, "You're pushing up on me," because he's being aggressive.
Look, here's the deal. Are you able to own a machine gun? I said, are you able to own one? That's right. AR-15's illegal.
I was having a machine gun.
No, it's not. Yeah, do you need 100 rounds? Do you need 100 rounds?
In America, with handguns, there are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are dying by handguns?
Okay, let's...
So dementia and Alzheimer's, two of the things that you see is anger outbursts that don't make sense, and oftentimes coming out of a sense of confusion and not knowing what's going on around you, which Joe Biden has showed for the last 6 years, and probably before that. He gets really angry, inappropriately so. He's confused and he doesn't know what's going on around him. So he lost it, right? But here was a debate. This was, you know, he had wandered off in some debate. He just started wandering off the stage. I'm not going to go look for all of these things. But here he is with Cory Booker.
I have a lot of respect for the vice president. He has sworn me into my office as a hero. This week I hear him
Groped my grandmother. It was cool.
literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you.
See, look at him. Like, it's nobody home. So Biden touches his face like he usually does.
And not talk directly to issues that are going to relate to the liberation
Teacher.
of children, because there are people in Congress right now that admit to smoking marijuana, while there are people, our kids are in jail right now for those drug crimes.
Me, can someone call on me? I want to talk to me.
And so these are the kind of issues that mean a lot to our community, and if we don't...
So then he comes in.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Vice President Biden, you can respond to that.
I'll be very brief. Number one, I think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. And I think anyone who has...
He was the front runner, right? So he had 20%. Everyone else had, like, at most double digits, but pretty much everyone was under 10%. So there was a bunch of different candidates. He was the one that had the most, but he didn't have a lot.
Has a record, should be let out of jail, their record's expunged, it be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's
because we don't know. It's just a brand new drug. It's like fentanyl. We don't know anything about marijuana, right?
All it is. Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me.
So he's looking at him. Look at him. He's laughing because he knows he's senile. Like, he's got a smug look on his face. He can't believe he's losing this guy. He's pulling at like 2%. Biden's pulling at 20%. He's trying to show everybody he's senile, but no one's willing to admit it.
In the black community that announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is...
that's not true. The other one is...
So look at him. Look at him get confused. So he said the only, right? And then he's going to change it to, I said the first.
Here. I said the first.
So he literally is just trying to lie right in front of everybody without realizing how bad it looks. He said the only, and Kamala saying, no, me too, I'm not supporting you.
I said the first African-American elected. The first.
And then Kamala's laughing because he's senile. She's laughing at him. They're all mocking him. Like they knew back then. She, of course, has reversed her position because he realized, he's not going to make it through a second term and she'll be the first president. She's unelectable, which is, we'll get into that, right? Which is another disaster for the Democrats.
So my point is that one of the reasons I was picked to be...
She's still laughing, right? And then there was this moment. So Biden was asked this.
Vice President Biden, the Me Too movement has forced a cultural reckoning around the issue of sexual violence and harassment against women in
Just look at his face, right?
America. Are there specific actions that you would take early in your administration?
So then he babbles for a little bit, and then he says this.
The rest of the community. And that's when we started this movement on the college campus, is to fundamentally change the culture. No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger other than in self-defense, and that's rarely ever occurs. And so we have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It will be a big... No, I really mean it. It's a gigantic issue.
Kamala's trying not to laugh here. but so we knew, right? And there were so many other instances, and these are like some of the moments where he's coherent, like he forgot his, he said, my president, forgot Barack Obama's name, president, my boss. There was just one after another, right? All these moments where he had senior moments and showed he had dementia, and he wasn't that great anyway. Like before dementia, he wasn't that great. But the Democrats decided to run him anyhow. And the media decided to cover it up. And they all saw it. They knew he had dementia. They knew he was slipping. It was obvious. And so it showed itself, and these, bad decisions, gaffes, and things like this, but also just, his anger and his, losing it, and just the way his face looked and all these things. And so it was clear that he had dementia. And I was saying it, I'm like, this is going to blow up in their face. I'm like, eventually this is going to blow up in their M&F face. I thought it would happen before the election in 2020. And at some point I thought they were going to say he had COVID and try to stick in Andrew Cuomo's, because he was a real hero of COVID. And, Biden was like, he was a mess, and he just kept on getting worse, but they kept on denying it. And I knew at some point they wouldn't be able to. And that happened. And here's the CNN people. So this is Dr. Jill Biden. Let's go back to the CNN thing in a moment, where she's still trying to spin it.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
You answered every question. You knew all the facts. Woo! Look at him. He's just, how can he smile? He has, the fact that he's clueless about how bad he did, right? Look at that. Look at that right there. Look at that demon come out. Look at this clueless M&F-er here. And look at that. Demon. And then goes back to a smile. Look at that demon. It's elder abuse, biatch. You're rolling this guy out. It's bad.
Look, I can't argue with either of them about how Democratic leaders are reacting. This was
Barack Obama's former senior advisor. He was the guy that was in charge of Obama's spin. And so he was with Biden. Biden was a part of the Obama administration, right? And so this guy, and he tries to spin it a little bit, but come on, it was that bad.
Acting to this poll, we said at the beginning that each person had a fundamental goal, and for Biden that goal was to appear energetic, engaged, and look like someone who is capable of serving for another 4 years for president. That was job number one. I actually think he scored a bunch of points. I think if you just judge this on sort of policy stuff, he did score a bunch of points on
the whole point is that Trump didn't answer questions. Trump lied about. Most Americans don't agree with the official story one way or another, even if they're Trump haters. Like people don't believe in the news or the politicians like anymore. I mean, less than even before, and it's always been a problem. But you can't. He was senile, right? Like that was the big takeaway.
Issues like abortion, for example, on some of the economic issues. But there is a feeling. I think there was a sense of shock, actually, at how he came out at the beginning of this debate, how his voice sounded. He seemed a little disoriented. He did get stronger as
not a little. He was lost. Didn't even know where he was. I mean, he was gone, and his voice was horrible. He came out hoarse and coughing, and it was bad. Like he was tight, and he was. I mean, he's just not there. And immediately you look at the guy, and you're like, this guy should be going to like a hospital. Like he should be. I mean, maybe even like a retirement home. Like it's not. This isn't somebody who can do any job, right? We'll get into this. We'll show it. And so he shouldn't be president now. It wasn't about being elected. It was like, whoa, this guy's way worse than you guys been telling us.
Debate went on, but by that time, I think the panic had set in, and I think you're going to hear discussions that I don't know will lead to anything, but there are going to be discussion about whether he should continue. And I think part of it is Donald Trump did not meet his mission either. He could not resist the temptation to be nasty, to prevaricate about a whole bunch of things.
They're just lost with this Trump thing. Like Trump did his best debate, and I'll get into that as the debate takes off. I'll show you the debate and why they screwed themselves with the rules. Like that's great too. That's coming, but it was his best debate, right? And like
about his own record, about Biden's record, and to seem petty and small at times. So what you saw was a candidate who's deeply vulnerable and a president who may not be able to take advantage of it.
Listen, if anybody in America thinks that was even close to being an okay debate by Joe Biden, I'm living in a parallel universe. That was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden from the second he walked out to the closing statement. The biggest issue for Democrats is abortion, and he couldn't give an answer. He gave an answer, he couldn't even give a coherent answer on the biggest issue for Democrats tonight. I've heard from leaders.
They had a number of, CNN had set up their questions to play into Biden's strength, right? They started with the economy, but they went into the abortion thing. And it was, the biggest winning issue for the Democrats and for Biden. And like he got a little bit angry at times, but he got a little bit fiery, and he was a little bit more articulate. But then, of course, he flubbed things because he always does. And it was, we'll show you that. Like it's
leading Democrats across the United States, elected governors, congressmen who are texting me and saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose if Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Bob Casey, I promise you tonight, in the state of Pennsylvania, is thrown up in his mouth because he knows that if he's got to stand next to Joe Biden, he's going down in Pennsylvania. If he's on the ticket, I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, look, it was a really disappointing debate performance.
So that guy was, this guy at the end, they don't let talk, even though he was the guy who said this was, he's going to tell us, we'll get back into him. This guy at the end, he's going to be the best, but this guy's here is fired up. Everyone else is sort of, doing a little bit of damage control, or maybe if something happened, he could say,
That's from Joe Biden. I don't think there's any other way to slice it. His biggest issue.
David Axelrod just showed John King a tweet here. This girl's the worst.
It was a really disappointing debate.
Look, John King's showing David Axelrod a tweet, and he's showing him a tweet.
Performance from Joe Biden. I don't think there's any
other way. Going, oh my God, they're shaking their heads. They're checking. She's the worst, but they're checking.
Slice it. His biggest issue that he had to prove to the American people was that he had the energy, he had the stamina, and he didn't do that. And so I think
he had to prove that he was mentally competent. We say it. He's senile, and you can't walk that back. He should be retired. You can't have a president that's senile.
That is of concern, and I think for a lot of Democrats, that's very disappointing. I will say.
What if he was an air traffic controller and he performed this way? There would have been multiple plane crashes, right? He has dementia. He can't think. He can't perceive what's going on around him.
Donald Trump also had some really rough moments in this debate. And, talking to the Biden campaign, they say, their dials started really moving away from Trump as he was increasing his personal attacks on Biden. So I think there was a lot about his kind of character and the kind of personal nastiness that he was putting on display, that doesn't help him with the swing voters that he needs. And I also think you saw...
There's nothing that Trump did that's going to overshadow, that's even going to be a question mark, when you roll out a senile guy who poops himself for 90 minutes.
Saw him continue to get sort of more and more animated across the course of the debate and, give some really problematic answers about January 6th, some really problematic answers about Putin. So, Donald Trump did not get off scot-free tonight by any stretch. But look, there is no two ways about it.
They just can't help themselves, right? They just can't stop from their narrative about Trump, make everything about Trump. This was about Biden. This is the first time it was about Biden. Right? It's always been about Trump. I've talked about this. Trump is the center of their universe. He's the center of the news media cycles everywhere. The last 6 years have been dominated by Trump. And last night was finally about Biden. It was about him being senile. And it was about his handlers in the Democratic Party and the media lying to everybody, which some guy's going to bring up here.
That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Ben?
That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. And he looked, I'll give you the analysis, you kind of have the old man versus the con man. I can walk you through how I'm supposed to see it and say it, but I just want to speak from my heart.
How you're supposed to. How you're supposed to do it, right? How we're told to do it. Now, we're instructed to do it, not my own opinion. How we're supposed to spin this thing.
I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can.
He's senile, right? Doing the best that he can.
But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now.
He's got to step down. There's no question about it. But, we'll see.
Still far from our convention, and there is time for this.
And usually the debates are after the convention, right? See, neither candidate is the definite candidate because the convention hasn't confirmed it. Debates are always closer to the election, right? They don't have these early debates in June. They have the debates in August and September. But now the convention's coming up. Trump's convention, they're going to sentence him. In Biden's convention, they're going to have to try to get rid of him. And then there's going to be new candidates, perhaps. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? That's, the chaos here.
Party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain for what we saw tonight.
And if I may just add to that, I think Joe Biden lost in the first 3 minutes. I think a lot of voters probably tuned out, and millions of people are having conversations with their families, with their friends, of if the president is up to the task and if he should step aside. And
I don't think they tuned out because it was fun to watch. I mean, it was, this was like an epic thing.
I'm someone who believes the former president is a threat to democracy. I think he is a threat to the America as we know it. He wants to fundamentally change our institutions. He has laid out what his plan is. I am not confident that that is the man to take him on. You cannot tell me democracy is on the line and then give that performance tonight. If, based on that, in 18 weeks, Donald Trump will be the president-elect.
The people doing focus groups tonight, and we'll see if our...
This guy wants to say something, and they won't let him because he was already on this before.
Style group with Laura Coates confirms this, saying that Biden actually scores pretty well on the issues when he's talking about the substance. And Trump's numbers went...
Come on. Just stop it. Just stop it, John King.
Down, both because he was ducking questions, he was lying about some things, and he was refusing to answer, and some of it was the tone. They don't like him. So when you see that, when you see sort of the statistics, you're going to look at oh, that's a mixed bag. But to Vance's point about the president's performance, that's what caused the panic. So the question is, and my question actually is, what happens? Because it's a great political strength of Joe Biden is his resilience and his stubbornness.
Uh-oh.
It's also sometimes a blind spot because he is so stubborn. It's going to be very hard to someone, and I don't know who it is, who could go to Joe Biden and say, you need to do this.
Well, because he's senile, right?
Number one. And the question is, again, like, I'm just telling you, to Abby's point, I've been doing this for 30-something years, going on 40 years, and I have never, ever had what happened on this thing tonight happen in the middle of a debate. It started early, and it continued. And to Van's point...
You know, it seems like they're trying to get rid of him by putting an early debate, or like maybe this was a test to see if he could, hold it together for whatever. I mean, I don't know if they drugged him up like with something bad instead of something good. Like they put him on, I don't know what they did, right? They could have been completely, this is how it works, right?
Van made a very important point. These are people who love Joe Biden, who credit Joe Biden for kicking Donald Trump out of the White House. They're Democrats. The Democratic Party is a very diverse party. It fights about a lot of things. It has generational issues. It's had regional issues and everything else. The thing that unites the Democratic Party is trying to keep Donald Trump from getting back into the White House. They love Joe Biden for kicking him out. They don't want him back. They came into this debate nervous that Biden was in a weak position. They leave this debate panicked.
John, if you love the guy, how could you put him out there?
That's hard.
If you love him, if you love Joe Biden, if that was my father, you don't put a guy in that situation.
It's a great point. These guys know this better. These guys know this better because they talk to them. There's this legacy in the Democratic Party. You don't challenge the incumbent because when it's happened in the past, they haven't beaten the incumbent, and then the incumbent has lost the general election.
John King, I mean, what happens now?
A couple things happen. Number one, we wait. I would say we should wait. We won't, but we should wait a week and see how this settles out in the polling.
Okay, so they cut this guy off. They don't have it here, but I have it taped. I'll go copy it on my phone. But they cut something out of his. They cut something huge out of this, and so this guy here was going to destroy this whole thing. Like he was going to say things, and I have it on. I taped it on the TV. But they don't have it, right? So they cut that guy out of there. They wouldn't let him speak. And he warned them ahead of time. Let's go. I'll go tape this on my phone and bring it back. So the two guys on the end, the bald guy and the guy that hasn't spoken yet, are Republican strategists. So they're the only ones who, are going to say anything close to the truth here. And not that Republicans are truthful, but this night is about Joe Biden. So there was a moment where David Axelrod explained what you guys saw, I showed you, where he explained that when they challenge an incumbent, this has happened politically, whenever the incumbent is challenged in a primary, that incumbent loses. That's why they got rid of Kennedy, because if Kennedy had challenged Joe Biden in a primary, Joe Biden would have taken a beating during the primary and then all the way through the election. That's why they don't do that. Because you're an incumbent, it's, a primary is death to you. But they also said, which they cut out, and I'm not going to go find that part, that this is up to Biden because he's the nominee. Even though the convention hasn't happened yet, he's the nominee. And so they got to get him to sign off, and he has to voluntarily leave. And after the debate, he looked like he did a good job, and Joe was proud of him because he's so far gone, he doesn't even know. Like, there's no shame and embarrassment. But these two Republicans said things that were more truthful. And it was bad, right? So let's get into that here. Then they erased this from what I showed you on YouTube. So they don't have the full clip of what these guys are saying. They got rid of the most, the best part here.
Yes, but it was one night in the course of a campaign, so I think let's see how voters react to it. Let's see how voters react to it.
The problem with the one night is that it's a one night that helped confirm people's fears. It's the one night that everybody was watching. That was essentially, Trump said, you ought to take a test. That was his test. And people are going to feel that he came up wanting. Not on the substance. I think
he failed the test, bro. Not came up wanting. He failed the test. And the test is, does he have dementia or not? It's a big freaking test. It's not a test that he can redo. Like I said, you don't need a whole debate of dementia. You just need a few moments where it's like, oh, he's falling apart. And Trump has had his moments on the campaign trail. He's getting old. These guys are just too old. But Biden is worse. Biden is a disaster. And to pretend, let's let the other guy speak here because he says what I was thinking, so many of us were thinking.
Actually won on the substance. I don't think Trump did well. I think what it says to a lot of people, a lot of active Democrats is, man, we can beat this guy, but I don't know if we can beat him with the press.
Scott, we haven't heard from you.
When we came on before this debate, I said I thought this candidacy was teetering. And everybody jumped on me.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Every single person out here. and I just, the candidacy has fallen, okay? Man, I know you're speaking from your heart. I'm worried about the president. We should pray for the president. I think his advisors, I think the White House, and I think his family have a lot of explaining to do to their party and to the American people. This night, this one night, was caused by and asked for by the Biden team. They wanted this night. And this is what we got. We have been told for weeks by Democrats who say, oh, in private meetings, I've seen Joe Biden do cartwheels and handstands while doing trigonometry while solving all the nation's problems. We now know that every single person who said that has been lying to the American people.
Including Kevin McCarthy?
We've been told, Kate.
Bitch, please, right? It's just stupid. Like, this is the truth of it. Because when I saw Kamala and these other people, and, we're going to show you Don Lemons in a bit. He's already in I made a video yesterday, like I said, that'll be the back half of this. We're about to go to the Trump debate, the Biden debate. This is the Biden debate. It's not the Trump. Everything else has been about Trump. This is about Biden. But they, again, when I opened this thing up by saying, I was waiting for this day. I didn't know I'd get it in this greater package. But the moment where everyone acknowledged what we've been saying in the truth community for a long time, and it's not Republicans or right-wing people, it's truthers. It validates truthers because the mainstream media has covered up for Joe Biden forever, and, so many other candidates. There's this piece, I'm not going to show it today, maybe I'll show it tomorrow, of the 2015 hit piece that the CNN did on Joe Biden for Hillary Clinton, because they want Hillary and not Joe Biden, or they were told Hillary and not Joe Biden. And so the mainstream media and the Democratic Party have rigged the system to cover up for Joe Biden. And it came to fruition today because now everyone knows he has dementia, and we know that they've been lying for these past 4 years as it's gotten worse, and there's been signs and things that should have made him retire. Responsible, that he's not the president, so it would be responsible to retire him for his sake, and just to pretend that the presidency is about being a president, because he's being handled right now, and he isn't making any decisions. They're just running the presidency around him and through him, like they did with Reagan when Reagan had Alzheimer's. And so that tells you everything you need to know about politics, tells you everything you need to know about the media, and the whole thing. That they lied, and his family rolling him out there. Like he's senile. He should be not doing any kind of job. But they're doing this and lying to everybody about it. And now the credibility that the Democratic Party has, and the Democratic Party has imploded. And, it's just the American people are too stupid and too hateful. The Democrats are too hateful towards Trump, maybe to realize it, but it just imploded. Because this is this destroys any credibility that they have. And CNN cutting this out so you can't see it on YouTube, right, is bad. It's really bad. This is, they're still trying to salvage something from this thing.
I mean, just saying. Everything we've been told about his mental acuity by these Democrats has been a lie, and everything we think we knew has been confirmed. I got a text from a friend. She's not terribly political. She maxed out to Biden in the last election because she hates Donald Trump. She said to me, I will never forgive the Democratic Party for this election. If the Democrats truly believe that he is an existential threat to democracy, and that's not just some talking point, they will wake up in the morning and they will do something else because this is not sustainable.
That's another point about there are Democrats who are panicking, and then there are a lot of Republicans who did not want to vote for Donald Trump, who do not want to vote for Donald Trump, who are also panicking tonight. I heard from one who said, "This is scary." That's how it was described to me. And
I'd second that.
There were a lot of those feelings, not just from the base of the party, but other people who really think that there should be an alternative to Trump, who they think is dangerous. And that's the other part of what is unfolding tonight in terms of the panic that is out there.
Because I already have, coming into this debate, support for third-party candidates, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. highest, and then Jill Stein and Cornel West nowhere near as close. But if you add it all up, you get into the teens in most states when you do that. I think one byproduct out of this is to watch and see if those numbers go up a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to go up anywhere like a Perot standard, but you get to third-party candidates getting into double digits, then that's really starts to twist your electoral math, state depending on who they're drawing from state by state. This was already a very complicated race. This is with it. Number one, the biggest complication right now is the conversation with the Democratic Party. But the other complication is going to be if Joe Biden stays put, and Kate's right, maybe there'll be another debate. I'm not sure Donald Trump's going to agree to a second debate. Biden's going to need it now. I'm not sure Trump's going to agree to it if the dynamics of the race change.
They'll never
and I would
meet
also
again.
watch the third party.
I just want to say one thing, especially to you two guys. If, for whatever reason, there's a change at the top of the ticket, you guys are in trouble with Donald Trump.
You know, Trump, they're saying he didn't answer some questions. And then, but the way he did it was much better than he does when he's on the campaign trail, when he's throwing red meat out to his crowd. He was pretty slick. And I thought he did a masterful job. And again, I want Trump gone. Like, I think Trump is just, it's time to move on. This was a happy moment for me, giddy moment, delivered, by this. I mean, the whole thing, and this guy being like this is just confirming it even more. They're so clueless about what other people are seeing. They're so locked up in their own worldview. They don't see that, everybody's, doesn't trust the mainstream media and the narratives and these other things, right? And I hope Trump doesn't win, for a variety of reasons, because it's going to be a disaster if he does. But, this thing with Biden is epic. And I don't see the Democrats, who are they going to replace? See, they're not saying anything about Kamala. And like they cut out a bunch of this, them talking about replacing Joe Biden. None of them said Kamala, who would be the obvious choice. She's a vice president, and she would be the front runner. She'd have to be in the conversation. And how would it be for the African American community and women if they get rid of Kamala and take Gavin Newsom, who's a disaster, who's some elitist white guy who ran California into the ground? I mean, they're both from the same state. They bypass a woman of color for a white guy. Like, I mean, how would that play in their, in the various demographics of women and people of color? And so in the Asian community, because, she's really Indian, but I mean, all of it. And so they are like sitting on a time bomb here. They don't have anybody better. And they knew that. That's why they had to roll this guy out. And so they're paying for their deception, right? In an epic way. And warning people, this guy being concernful that Trump's in trouble. Trump did great. And again, I don't want him elected for a lot of reasons. And I'll get into that more as we move forward with this. Tomorrow or whatever. I'm going to cover the rest of the debate tomorrow. I'm going to start with 1/3 of it in just a moment. But I mean,
because the guy who was up there tonight is not a guy who's going to inspire people. He did not show in any way that he has changed from the guy who people have a very positive opinion of for a lot of good reasons.
I think Donald Trump won several policy exchanges tonight. I think he did well on immigration. I think he did well on the economy. I think he did well on inflation. I think he went back to Afghanistan as he should have. The thing he did not do was, after he realized that he had Biden beaten on policy and on image, he should have turned the page and sounded an optimistic note about what we can become as a people and as a country. He did not do that. He continued to pummel Joe Biden all night. I understand what you're saying. But at the end of the night, very few things about the policy exchanges is going to be remembered. People are going to remember Joe Biden. They're going to remember him shuffling out They're going to remember him staring blankly into the camera. They're going to remember him looking down, losing his train of thought. And they're going to remember that everything I thought I knew, but the White House told me don't believe my own eyes, is actually true.
But that's not what I said. What I said, Scott, was if Joe Biden were not the candidate, if there was another candidate, I think Donald Trump would be in deep.
Yeah, but
if
I may, that is such a sad state of affairs. Something I was consistently hearing is what a bad debate in the sense that Donald Trump lied throughout.
That's not true at all. And I'll explain why Donald Trump did great. Let's transfer over to the debate and how they screwed Biden by doing rules that actually they thought would help Biden, but it screwed him. It's great. So let's get started. This is the MSNBC coverage of the CNN debate. And here's the beginning here.
Past, of course, but this time is going to look a lot different.
The debate is being held at a TV studio after the candidates bypassed the commission that hosted the debate since the 1980s.
So there is no audience tonight, and the microphones will be muted after a candidate's speaking time is up.
The debate expected to run 90 minutes. There will be 2 commercial breaks this evening.
We're going to bring you full analysis here on NBC once the debate is over, but it is about to begin. CNN about to broadcast the presidential debate. Let's listen.
Case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash.
Dana Bash, looking with a ghoulish Joker smile.
Of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper's with his somber tie. Not going with a somber tie. Jake Tapper's lightening the mood with his non-somber tie.
Anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the 2 candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions.
Coin toss.
Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home.
So I heard so many Republicans whine about this. Actually, one guy, a rapper. But a video came up on my feed, and he was whining about the rules and how this was better for Biden. And I guess everyone, this was rules put in by Biden because Trump interrupts and Trump speaks over the other guy. But it turned out that it just made Trump's performance even better and made Biden's performance even worse. It was the best thing that happened to Trump, even though Biden and his team and CNN and all the powers that be put these rules in to help Biden. They still ended up screwing him, and I'll show you why as this thing begins here.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact...
Which, again, was to help Biden, and it hurt him.
...with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Okay, just the way he walks, his gait, which I've been pointing out now for the last 6 months or so. He's just, he's breaking down neurologically and physically where he's having trouble walking, right? This is what happens to old people, especially ones with dementia. Like his perception of reality, his expression on his face, just his walk out here, you would say this guy should not be president. If you were being honest and objective, if you have any kind of ability to read people and assess what they look like, if you can look at a person and say, what is this person? This MNFer can't walk, and he looks like he's clueless. It's a very performative wave to the hosts. Points to somebody that we can't see, so he looks crazy. Like that was an adventure. Like his team was, all right, he made it to the podium. Like that's how they're thinking, right? That's how bad this is.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
He looks grumpy and bummed and, bitter, but it didn't display. Like, he did a great job for Trump, and we'll get into it here.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your
Okay, so look at him. Look at this clueless MNF'er. And this is just how he's going to look. Like, I'm going to point it out. But here he is. He solicited his first question. Does he look like he's a confident guy? Like he's coherent? No, he's not coherent. You just have to look at him. If you are assessing somebody, if an older person is coming in and you're interviewing them or whatever, you're assessing them psychologically or something, you look at them and immediately they present like they're clueless and have cognitive abilities. This is what a person has cognitive difficulties looks like.
Presidency than they were under President Trump.
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president.
That's your voice coming out? That's your frickin' voice? I mean, he's already low energy, but his voice is hoarse.
Mr. Trump left me. We had an
Mr. Trump, not President Trump, right? Like, he's trying to crap on him.
Economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right.
Okay, so they're going to have fact-checking here, or they did when it was live. I guess they got rid of it. But they had fact-checking. I don't know. I'll check back later. But they were fact-checking Trump mostly. But Trump said, inject a little bleach into you wasn't, like he was saying if there's a way we could get bleach into people, which was effed up what Trump said. But he didn't say just inject a little bleach. He got worked on COVID. That's true. But it saved his presidential campaign because they hid him away, right?
The economy collapsed. There were no jobs.
He got baited into the economy collapsing. That happened. So that's bad on Trump. But they baited him. Like, the economy was good. It was a false economy because Trump was handing the economy back over to the bankers. And, that was not good. But, this is irrelevant, right? Everything bad in the economy has happened since Biden's taken over in a post-Trump era. And not that Trump isn't somewhat responsible for setting Biden up, but Biden has done a bad job himself. But either way, it was going to happen because it's a debt-based system, and it was going to collapse either way. Neither one of these guys was going to save it, right?
Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position.
15,000 new jobs, right? Say we created 15,000 new jobs.
Where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs.
So how does 800,000 go into 15,000, right? So we said we had 15,000 new jobs and then 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. So during the first part of this era, this first couple of times he's responding, he butchers numbers and gets things wrong, and it's bad, right? But he's just not speaking with any confidence. Like, this is a holy shit moment, right? Like, people are like, holy shit, right?
But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
You come from Scranton?
Sold where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now.
So he knew the first question was going to be about economy, and this is a rehearsed answer. And he's butchered it. He's delivered it horribly. And, let's go back to it here.
In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos. literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Okay, so that was horrible. And it gets worse from there. The housing market is disturbing because they've done everything in their power to drop housing prices because it represents inflation, right? The housing is up 30%, meaning, when they've changed the interest rate to to drop housing prices, and that didn't work, that meant inflation was worse than they were. They're trying to tamp down inflation. Inflation, they're saying, is 20%, but it's really like 100%, right?
Thank you. President Trump?
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression.
He got worked by COVID, but he is calm. And I guess he knows right now that Biden is bad. Like, he's not going to do a good job. Like, he must know now that he just not have to do anything to take away from Biden. Like, he's very subtle. Like, you don't see Trump be subtle, right? He's reserved, which is bad news for Biden, right? And bad news for the media and everybody else.
Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got...
Everything was rocking good.
The credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country, but other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy...
Okay, so this is not going well for Biden. You can see it's bad because Trump is, he's not being Trump, right?
Economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover.
See, the whole thing when they worked Trump on COVID, they used that against him. They pushed him, they baited him into closing down the economy, and then destroyed him in the debates and everything else about how the effects of him closing down the economy, even though he was pressured, and he fell for it. But, that's all they have, right? Like, before that, and again, Trump's economy was a false economy because he turned over he undid all the stuff that the bankers, all the restrictions the bankers and the stock market, the brokers and things had in the, after the economic meltdown in 2008. And so it was only a matter of time before that caught up to him or somebody. But either way, the debt-based economy, the user economy, has been on the brink of collapsing for 40 years because the debt's out of hand. The too big to fail stuff. And so somebody's going to get stuck with that, right?
The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
So he's getting decades and centuries confused. And Trump did a much better job at not starting wars or continuing wars or all the military stuff or all the stuff with terrorists. Like Trump got rid of ISIS and all these things, because it was a CIA asset, right? But none of these things are important because, it's who you believe and who's responsible for, who's the authority in your mind, who's somebody that you trust, who's somebody you can believe in terms of any of these issues. And so that's going to be whatever it is. This is about his weak-ass voice and his incoherence, right? So much so that the Democrats are like, oh, my God, this guy's way worse.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you.
So him asking that means that he knows he doesn't have to be Trump and be overbearing, which has really always played bad for him. So these are where the rules are helping Trump. As you see this, there's a few times that Trump tried to respond, but the microphone cut him off. And if you know anything about independent voters and people who aren't, are undecided, Trump's bullying and talking over and interrupting people played poorly. It's something that Trump liked in the boardroom when The Apprentice, but it was annoying. Like, it makes you angry at him. You dislike the guy. But he's not doing that because the rules they put in to help Biden and prevent Trump from doing that, and maybe Biden would have been a little bit more rattled if Trump did that, but it would have been about Trump interrupting. It would have been about Trump being rude. That's how they would have categorized the debate. So these rules help Trump, and nobody saw that coming. And Trump is being completely, calm. And I don't know how the end of the debate, but like I said, I watched the first third of it. But him doing that has made Biden stick out as somebody who's mentally incompetent. So they screwed themselves so bad by these rules, and Trump is doing a masterful job of controlling his impulses and his Trumpisms, right?
I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history.
Okay, look at him. Look at him. Look at how clueless he is. See, this doesn't matter. Trump just has to talk calmly, and he's more credible because this is what he's up against. Whatever he's saying, it's a competent person, mentally competent person. And this guy, look at him. Look at this ghoul right here. Look at him, right? And he just keeps on being like this the whole time.
History. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last...
Look at him.
Last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan
analysis... Look at him gaping, his ghoul hole just laying open here.
President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going...
See, again, if you're not somebody who's going to do any kind of research, who are you going to believe? Like Trump sounds convincing. He's a good salesman. And he's doing the best job he's ever done in these debates of just selling in a, not like a bloated, egotistical way. I mean, he's still a little bit braggadocious. He's always going to be narcissistic. But he's doing he's confident. And Joe Biden is crapping himself on the other side, right?
Going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that
look at his look there, right?
We came up with. We gave him something great.
So let's wait. Let's take a look here. Got rid of the chat. They had, when MSNBC first started this, when I saw this last night, I pulled this up. On the side of where the chat is, they were fact-checking Trump, live fact-checking, and they got rid of it. But this is how much they were rigging it against Trump, and yet, with all the advantages, Biden is just senile. Like, you can't change that. Like, you can't make that better. You can't hide that. Like I said, it's the easiest thing to diagnose.
Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration.
Look at him.
He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell
With that crooked smile.
you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
So the thing is that Trump is going in on how incompetent he is as a president. And his crapping the bed here, shitting the bed here, ain't helping. Like, this is, again, Trump is calm, way calmer than ever seen. It's almost like they give him something to calm him down and be less of a dick, right? And, like, this is a disaster for Biden. You now see that not having an audience, he's just out there on his own failing without Trump interrupting him, without Trump doing anything that's going to prevent Biden from failing, right? And so this is a disaster. Like, nobody probably saw this being this bad. They thought they'd give him some of his talkie pills, right?
Second, I've asked Congress to increase my dosage of talkie pills.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America.
Like, clear your throat, MNFer.
I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening?
Okay, listen to this, right? So this is where its math just sucks.
We have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period.
In a 10-year period. So, like, let's get into what he just said here. First, he said we have 1,000 trillionaires, but then he's changed it to billionaires. And they said if they paid 24% tax instead of 8%, they would raise $500 million. And then he said, no, $500 billion in a 10-year period.
We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that
we'd be able to wipe out his debt with $500 billion. We are $34 trillion in debt just for the national clock. In unfounded liabilities between Medicaid and Medicare, it's like $60 trillion, and that's not even part of the budget. And he's saying you could wipe that off with $500 billion. You gave the Ukraine $200 billion, right? Like, he's just, he doesn't have his numbers straight, and he's making all these mistakes, and it's his delivery, right? His clueless, Deliverance Boy, all these things, right? His weird chin, like they did something to his chin and now it's backfiring, like they Botoxed it.
All those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the...
Trump's like a bitter, grumpy old guy, but he's restraining himself, and like he just is better than Biden. Like that's just, I mean... with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
So Jake Tapper's, like this, watch it again. Jake Tapper saves him, right? He just saves him from like his own like babbling. But he says something horrible for him at the end of that, right? And so here we go. COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare. Because
Kaboom. So this is what that woman was saying about him feeding in. There's Fish Boy. Him feeding in. Look at him. Like he just realized he's like, and then he must forget how bad he does, because he's looking at himself like, oh my God, I don't like, I can't articulate stuff. The words aren't coming, right? He just babbled on, and then he just talked about Medicare that had nothing to do with anything to do with what he's talking about. And he's like, he looks like, oh my God, I'm losing it. Like he's confused and helpless.
Because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will
Look, he's just lost all confidence.
Wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America.
And, like what he's saying is being echoed. Them going with split screen is destroying Biden, because everything he's saying is written all over his face that the guy's mentally incompetent.
America, we're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Tana?
This is
so Biden was trying to respond, but his mic got cut off. And so that is, just one of the moments where you're like, that was where I went and I started to record what CNN was going to say afterwards, because I wanted to see how they were going to spin that MNFers. Right? Spin what you just saw there. That is one senile MNFer. Okay, so I covered this yesterday. We'll go back to the debate. So this is epic right here. So this is Dandy Don Lemons, and this is Cenk Iyengar. And, they go at it over Biden's senility. And he says, and I'm going to cover this later in the video. It's going to look repetitive, but I'm going to have a different take, because what I did before, what you're going to see later, is pre-debate, right?
You know what they say, that Joe Biden they're saying, can't hold his, that Joe Biden is senile. They're saying all these things. I'm not. And
okay, what are you saying today, right? And so I'll look to see if he has an update. But you're going to have to say something today, because he was senile. And it was obvious he was. And it's your job and everyone's job as a reporter to make sure your president isn't senile. Because a senile president, either there's no real president and he's completely handled, or a senile president is a disaster. And he's a disaster, bro. And so they're all covering for him. But now, of course, they've bailed.
you have to do is turn on conservative media or read conservative media, and you'll hear and see all those things. I think you're being biased because you ran against Joe Biden. I know you don't like him, and you think whatever.
No,
I just think you're not living in reality.
He's pathetic, and he's definitely going to lose. I don't know how much clearer I need to be. Why do you want to lose to Trump? You make this great.
I'm not saying I want to lose to Trump. I'm just saying that's the only alternative.
He's saying he's the only alternative, right? He's saying he's the only alternative, and they get in. He just beats him down. Zdenka Angar. You'll see this later in my video. This video here. But he, he's saying he's the only alternative, and that's the problem for all the Biden people, is that he is the only alternative because they can't run Kamala. Gavin Newsom's possibly could beat Trump. I don't know what he's polling at, but he ran California into the ground. So it would have to be American people being more clueless than normal. And, Trump looks pretty good at this point. And I don't want Trump to win. I want Trump to disappear. And not that I want Gavin Newsom or anybody. It doesn't really matter. I don't know if there's a third-party candidate that could win, and I don't want Kennedy. I mean, they all suck. I don't care, who wins. I just want Trump and Biden to disappear. But what I really want, which is happening right now, is all these people to be wrong and us to be right. Because we had to live with this forever, us being right. It was constantly happening, and then eventually it comes out. And it came out in a kaboom type way.
Painful, disastrous, an utter train wreck. You guys know what I'm talking about. But that's the sentiment, really, the words from top Democrats, including folks in the White House. That's what they're using to describe President Joe Biden's performance at the CNN debate on Thursday night. Okay, was it that bad? The answer is, yeah, I thought it was pretty bad. There's no way to...
Okay, so this is just in. I'm editing. I'm going to cover this tomorrow. This Lincoln Project, which is a disaster. I mean, but he has to reverse his position. And so he was saying Joe Biden wasn't senile, but we just saw he was.
It's been it. Stuart Stevens is there. Stuart, I'm going to introduce you in a second, but let me just get these thoughts out. And then you have a wealth of knowledge and experience. I'm sure you're going to disagree with me, but I think President Biden failed to clear this very, very low bar that all of those MAGA Republicans, including the president, conservative media, that they set for him, basically saying that he was going to keel over on stage. He had this raspy voice. It was a halting voice. It was meandering answers. All
right, so we'll cover this tomorrow. So him having to admit, like all these people, he was saying he wasn't senile 2 days ago, whatever it was, when he was interviewing that guy, Zdenka Angar, but, it happened, right? And so we'll get into this as I do more coverage on Saturday. Okay, so I just turned on the news. I took a break for lunch. I want to get this thing done as soon as possible for the obvious reasons, right? And so MSNBC and CNN are in complete free fall. And they're vacillating between how bad the debate was and maybe there's some concerted effort. This was done purposefully to undermine Joe Biden and slide him out of there and then get a new guy in there, new person, with just enough time for the final debate in September and then get the election done with whatever's going on with Trump. Like who Trump could be in jail, we don't even know, right? So there's some doubt about how this is going to finish up, right? And so this is going to be a bizarre election because of that, aside from all the rigging. And, Fetterman gave a comment, which I'll probably cover tomorrow because I'm going to do this, second part of this debate then. That this is no time to bail on him and look at the bad debate I had. Doesn't make a man, he's senile, right? I mean, we now know, everyone should know that Joe Biden has dementia. Like he is broken down mentally. And he is not he is a vacant, like a vacant lot, right? He's vacant eyes and just all these things, which we've noticed it's been since 2019. It's got progressively worse. He can't serve even now. He should leave his job now. He can't do the job. But part of what they're saying is, let's wait and see, because people hate Trump, at least lots of people hate Trump. And how bad has the deterioration been to Americans in terms of their ability to accept something like this, right? Like, can they accept this guy, even though he's senile, that he won't even be president, he'll be more or less just a meat puppet up there, and that he's better than Trump? Like, part of them is seeing how Americans react to this debate and poll numbers and things. before they pressure him out of there. And this is like how bad it is, right? I mean, the Democratic Party's in full panic mode, so is the media. I mean, they're actually saying that. They're saying that in all these broadcasts. They're in full panic mode. And why would they ever say that, right? I want to see the Morning Joe reaction tomorrow. This is going to be a long video. But we're going to get back into the debate in a second here. But that's their reaction, right? Like, how bad are the American people's expectations? How low are they? And what they'll tolerate as president. And this is everything you need to know about the apocalypse. This is what I'm saying. This is the best he could produce. They're talking about, like, I just turned off MSNBC, and there was a white woman on there going, some young girl, 30s, going, they don't dislike Joe Biden. They just don't think he's up to the job. They hate Donald Trump. And I'm like, well, there's plenty of people who hate Biden. Like, he ruling all those people out. This isn't about his likability factor. The guy's a career politician, and he's been doing this for 40 years. And so he's mentally broken down. They talk about how he restored confidence when he gave that epic, what they're calling an epic State of the Union. But he was showing signs of dementia there. They said, well, he was reading from a script, and when he was just, they've been hiding him. That's what Andrea Mitchell said. They've been protecting Joe Biden. Well, they only are doing that because he's got dementia. You don't have to do that if he doesn't have dementia. They've been hiding him for, they hit him with COVID. Remember when he was campaigning with COVID? He'd only go on like one campaign event, and he was going, like, there was one, he was in a car, and all the other people are in cars, and they're all wearing masks. The masks help protect his face from you looking at it, right? And so COVID helped him look like he was a candidate that could do the job because he wasn't really campaigning. He wasn't going through the rigors of campaigning. And then, of course, they rolled out the absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, and that helped him. We know, right? So, the reality of it, and again, who says how much this is real and staged? But the Democratic Party is, partly in panic mode and partly seeing what the American people will tolerate. Because we don't even know if they're going to get rid of this guy. I mean, they have to, but they don't have to, right? And we're going to see what happens, and that's all kind of epic, too. Okay, so let's get back into it here.
The first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
So they went from the economy, which was a killer for Joe Biden. That's one of the reasons why people, and that's their number one concern, and he flubbed that. But now he has a chance to redeem himself because the majority of people are on his side for abortion, and that can tell you where the moral compass is for Americans. But like I've talked about this before, abortion is certainly murder, but it's become something that without it, the system would collapse even faster and harder than it is now because of all those unwanted all the stuff that's happening, right? But here's something Joe Biden should slam dunk, and he doesn't.
This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
Look at him. Look at Joe Biden. You're supposed to be here.
Democrats, Republicans.
Look at this, just the grimace.
Liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world.
See his look right here. And I said to my wife, he looks like he's in the middle of the road, and there are 2 giant, those sort of big monster trucks with the jacked up wheels and the big floodlights on top with, high, like really intense lumens in terms of the light, 500, whatever the top lumens is you could have on a car. And he's standing in the middle of the road being blinded like a deer, about to get run over, completely confused, right? Or like he's, somebody like walking into a nightclub who's old and, looking around and just confused, like somebody who's wandering around the retirement home and, looking like this, lost and not knowing where they are, what to do, right? Completely unaware of his surroundings.
The most respected wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And
so Trump is also, when you hear him at his rallies and you hear him in his interviews, he's radical and he says things that will be unacceptable to the average voter. To the, look at it, look how clueless he looks, right? And, he just doesn't tamp it down. He doesn't restrain himself, but he's doing a great job here. That's why this is disturbing. As much as they want to say he did a bad job, this is as good as a performance you can get from Trump. Trump's always going to be an a-hole. He's always going to be arrogant. He's always going to be narcissistic. But he's really dialed it back. And he looks just more presidential. And Joe Biden's lost, right? So this is something Trump should be getting killed on. And they say he doesn't answer a lot of the questions. And he didn't answer the stuff about the big event in January, the January 6th thing. But he does talk, he gives answers about something else, right? I mean, he kind of answered in a sideways way. But he's not avoiding this issue. He's taking it head on, even though it's his biggest losing issue. The biggest loser for Trump is that 60% of Americans want Roe v. Wade back.
Frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest.
Also, go back to that one.
And the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
Boom. Now, this is a big moment.
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that
again, he's butchering those answers. Like you don't know what he's talking about, right? I assume he's trying to say that going to see a doctor who can say that you're eligible for an abortion or not, but that's not what he's saying, because he says this over and over again where he's been trying to make it sound like it's the doctor's choice and not the woman's, right?
states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But
See, he shouldn't have said that. That's Trump's talking point. He shouldn't be talking about the woman who was murdered by an immigrant, because Trump has already brought that up, and they're not even on immigration yet, which is Trump's biggest issue. The economy, certainly, but immigration, he's getting killed on immigration. So he just talked about an immigrant killing a person. Why in the world would he do that? Like, he's setting Trump up there. Like, he's babbling incoherently, and he needs to go like in damage control mode.
Here's the deal. There's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
By their brothers and sisters? So, like, let's listen to that whole little thing again here. So, he brings up immigrants killing people, which is what he doesn't want to do. And then he's Here he goes.
Murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
It's just not immigrants raping and killing people. It's also brothers and sisters. Like, he's losing it, right?
Oh, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it.
It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. Oh, you mean an abortion? What about stopping their brothers and sisters from marrying them? Like, the whole thing. Like, it's, I mean,
and they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border.
You just reminded him of that. Like, you just handed Trump that, right?
We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Considered the most dangerous.
You're supposed to be talking about abortion. You've handed Trump, by bringing up immigrants into this, you've handed Trump another way, because they're still going to talk about immigration. You've just handed Trump another way that he can bring this up and blame you for this, right?
Place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have, everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states. I'll let you do that.
Look, he's confused. Like, we're staying on the topic, Joe. He can't even.
This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain.
So she's handing him something, right? She's handing him something that the majority of Americans are for. But look at his frickin' face. Look at his fucking face right here.
An abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I support Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians...
that's not how trimesters work.
That the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the governor, former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
You're lying. That is simply not true.
So they turned his microphone back on, and they shouldn't have, because they gave him a follow-up question.
The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go.
Constitutional scholarships. So he meant constitutional scholars. And there's just so many of these. I'm not pointing them all out. Like the babbling and mispronouncing words.
51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the
what's he going to do when he comes for you?
Republicans,
bad boys.
It's elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border
Okay, so this is a big issue for Trump here.
security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch, overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no...
His voice, I mean, just his whole voice. His voice is so weak. I mean, you can't have that, right? When your job is basically to be a public speaker more than anything else. And he's not doing that. He's not doing interviews. He's not campaigning. He's not out there in front or protecting them. And it shows up in his voice, this big moment. His voice is weak and hoarse and, you know, all these things.
Circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition,
nobody believes that, bro.
To that, we found ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done.
Okay, so the camera here is making him pop a little bit. But Trump is 6'3", 6'4". He's 6 feet. Trump is 3 inches taller. And, you know, with his hair, too. He should be looking taller. I think that they prop Biden up a little bit here. You can see it from a different angle.
And since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed...
He looks almost taller than Trump here. And so they've done everything possible to make this situation as gentle and as easy for Biden to win or do well, and he's failed. They changed the rules, everything that they've done. But he's senile, like he's got dementia. You can't hide that, right? And they've been hiding it, but you can't hide it here.
In a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
And so that was one of the kaboom. Like he's feeding Trump those things. Like he just is, I mean, it's brutal.
We had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed under his administration, killed an al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said.
Okay, so where are you going to get the data? When people are coming in, you think they're coming in with prison identification or terrorist identification. You don't know what the people are coming in. They're going to lie to you if they're undesirables. You think they're going to come in and say, hey, I mean, these people are coming in and they're never even interacting with any officials because they're not going through immigration. You have no idea where they're from. to say there's no data, well, of course. You haven't talked to them. You don't even know who the people are. You don't even know how many there are, right? But if people are pouring over the borders, anybody can come in. And it could be criminals and mental institution people. It could be some good folks. But it doesn't matter. Like, it's a disaster. You can't have this happening. The border is one of the, biggest issues. And he just lost on Roe v. Wade, and now he's babbling about this, right?
Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world, and it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it.
See, he's totally believable because Biden's failing. Like, if one person looks senile, then the other person is, looks rational, and Trump is doing his best job to be restrained.
He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma.
So bringing up his son that died is a mistake because he wants to talk Hunter, right?
Recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke about those.
He pooped his pants there. It was poop day.
Heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery.
Oh, wait, I missed this part here. Also, look at his chin.
Recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery.
I spoke to those heroes that died. Like, just really bad.
To the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
This is not a good moment for him because they want to make Trump unhinged. They want to make Trump be the one who's insulting people. They want to make Trump unlikable, and they've got rid of the rules to make Trump not do those things. Trump is being reserved. And he's the one calling names and these things, right?
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up.
Again, walked into it, right?
There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
Four-star
So he just walked into that. Like, he keeps on feeding Trump talking points.
general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign.
Okay, so it's going to come back to the veterans. Trump's going to bring it around. Let's just wrap this up here.
Policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight.
Okay, so I just want to end there because that was an exchange. But he did a good job of waiting for his turn. Again, like, he's overperforming. He's getting rid of the things that make Trump unlikable. And this format is killing it for him. And Biden is looking confused. And Biden just doesn't know what to say. Like, he's lost, and he's just, he's senile. Like, it's senile and it's evident. And this is like their, coming home party. So I'll cover this again tomorrow. I want to look at how MSNBC reacted to the debate at first glance, because that's coming up here in the same video. I want to see how they reacted to Morning Joe. I'm going to see what Don Lemons has to say, and then cover the rest of the debate tomorrow. Okay, so Biden went on the campaign trail, and this is what he said.
Thank you.
Woo, go, woo. Go.
Thank you, North Carolina.
Woo, Joe.
I'm going to get in trouble with my mom looking down in heaven if I don't say, please excuse my back. I apologize. It's good knowing you have my back. Eric, thanks for that introduction. We had a wonderful time spending time with your sons, Kristen and Carter. We're going to grow up to be incredible young men. You would have been really impressed the way they talked about their dad, how informed they were about what was going on. I was truly impressed. And I ate 2 hamburgers.
So here he talks about the debate.
Now, folks, I don't know what you did last night, but I spent 90 minutes
90 stage.
on a stage debating a guy who has the morals of an alley cat.
Woo, alley cat, woo.
Did you see Trump last night? My guess, he set, I mean it sincerely, a new record for the most lies told in a single debate. He lied about the great economy he created. He lied about the pandemic he botched, killing millions of people. He closed businesses. He closed schools, losing their homes, people all over this country. America's flat on its back. So I told Trump that he was just one of two presidents in American history who left office with fewer jobs than he started. Herbert Hoover was the other one. That's why I call him Donald Herbert Hoover Trump.
Woo! Your insult game's on point, woo!
And then he lied about how great he was for veterans.
Woo, woo.
But then I told him how he had called a veteran who had given their lives in the country in World War I and refused to go to the grave sites. He called them suckers and losers. He tried to deny it. But let me ask you, are you going to believe a 4-star Marine general, his own former Chief of Staff, John Kelly, who said he said that? Or a disgraced, defeated, and lying Donald Trump? My son was one of those people.
My son was a sucker and a loser. I mean, the other one.
Not a war woman in the folks, look, how about the fact that 44
4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years. So they really got this crowd pumped up. So I don't know if this was pre-planned.
How about the fact, that's okay. How about the fact that 40...
Okay, let's get to the part where he talks about his own problems. So the guy must have said Trump's name 40 times. I could count it. I'm not going to, but this is his big sort of his showing everybody that he's not senile.
Folks, let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know.
People don't get that excited over him. These are either paid people or I don't know. These are all campaign. I mean, this is not a typical Joe Biden rally, right?
Well, I don't. Folks, I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Okay, that's never been your strong suit. And you're senile, right? It's just those are all signs of senility. He's doing better today than he did last night. But this is some kind of propped up event and, not taking responsibility for what's going on here. He knows how to tell the truth. And so the rest of the video was one I made earlier. There was a movie clip. I'm going to put it up for members. I have a separate standalone video. I can do that. I bust out the honey bit. When I used to do honey. This I haven't done that in a while. I was looking forward to showing everyone that, but it got copyrighted like these two goofy, whatever it is. The movie studio. But anyways, let's get into the video. So I made this video before the debate, and a lot of it is, it's kind of interesting to have the perspective of, the things that were going on before the debate and how I was feeling about it. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I got an Alex Jones update, bunch of stuff. Today is the Wednesday, June 26th. Tomorrow is the debate, first debate. Really not interested in that so much. We'll see what happens with all that. But let's start here. Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan have started production on Freaky Friday sequel. I don't know how that's even possible. But there she is rocking the devil's horns with her tongue out. We've seen her before. She's just messed up. I'm not going to do a review of how messed up she is, but she is. And dudeish. Okay, the original Celine Dion shares heartbreaking footage of her self-suffering crisis seizure amid stiff person syndrome battle. The original ghoul, Celine Dion, 56 years old. Here she is. She's going to have some kind of a ghoul issue here. Why is she sharing this? You're just bringing us all down, bro.
Pain. Squeeze my hand if you have pain. Squeeze my hand if you have pain.
What do you mean, squeeze your hand if you're in pain? You need, like, this professional with his bogus little mask wants to know if she's in pain or not. Squeeze my hand if you're in pain. Stop moaning and grimacing and let me know if you're in pain.
Okay. Okay. So there. Now she's breathing up normally. Okay. Nasal spray's going in at 728.
Oh man, that doesn't look good. It'd be funny if she tried to bust out a song right now.
Coming out.
Boom. So that's what's up. I don't know what's happening there. But Celine is, tough times for Celine. How Taylor Swift's banker father paved her way to superstardom after giving up life on Christmas Tree Farm to launch her billionaire career as he arrives for Wembley's show. So this is what I was talking about. Taylor Swift, hashtag the banker's daughter. Taylor Swift, hashtag the banker's daughter. Father proved he was singer's biggest supporter once again as he touched down in London. Scott, 72, traveled. The singer's father and mom, Andrea, are almost as popular among Swifties as a singer. Take a look at Scott. Paved the way for Taylor to achieve superstardom. And so they were in a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania, apparently. There he is arriving at the Eras Tour. There they are together. There they are. There's Taylor when she was a little dude, So they're there. There's his dad of the headliner. He's got that. His long-term Merrill Lynch and Bank of America employee who's registered investment advisor. The Swift Group is based in the family's hometown of Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. Disclosure with the Securities and Exchange Commission lists him linked to 10 companies affiliated with his daughter, according to Bloomberg. This guy was a banker who, she's a banker's daughter, right? We covered this before. Hometown of Williams. So this is Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, which is close to what big city? None, I guess. It's just out in the middle of frickin' nowhere there. I mean, Pennsylvania is like some crazy, because it's close to Allentown and Philadelphia a little bit. But they were there in Pennsylvania, a northern state, where she developed the ability to do country music. They moved down to Nashville with her banker father, and he bought her stardom. Man attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband, also found guilty of kidnapping and faces life in prison. Remember Nancy Pelosi's husband's lover? Remember that thing? There are so many big things that are happened that, here, let's see this thing, that just become, week-long stories. I mean, that was a big thing, that whole story was weird. The hammer guy, right? All that stuff.
You seem very reliant on accepting Putin's worldview.
Putin.
Rather than perhaps the stark reality of the barbarism with which he's executed this war.
Putin.
Yeah, maybe because I know too much about the United States, because the first war in Europe after World War II was the U.S. bombing of Belgrade for 78 days to change borders of a European state. The idea was to break Serbia, to create Kosovo as an enclave, and then to install Bondesteel, which...
Plus there was human trafficking from the UN during that time. Just to throw that in.
Which is the largest NATO base in the Balkans, in the Southwest Balkans. So the U.S. started this under Clinton. that we will break the borders, we will illegally bomb another country. We didn't have any UN authority. This was a, quote, NATO mission to do that. Then I know the United States went to war repeatedly, illegally, in what it did in Afghanistan, and then what it did in Iraq, and then what it did in Syria, which was the Obama administration, especially Obama and Hillary Clinton, tasking the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, and then what it did with NATO illegally bombing Libya to topple Muammar Gaddafi, and then what it did in Kiev in February 2014. I happened to see some of that with my own eyes. The U.S. overthrew Yanukovych together with right-wing Ukrainian military forces. We overthrew a president. And what's interesting, by the way, is we overthrew Yanukovych the day after the European Union representatives had reached an agreement with Yanukovych to have early elections, a government of national unity, and a stand-down.
He's just giving it to peers here.
Of both sides. That was agreed. The next thing that happens is the opposition, quote unquote, says we don't agree. They stormed the government buildings and they deposed Yanukovych. And within hours, the United States says, yes, we support the new government. It didn't say, oh, we had an agreement. That's unconstitutional what you did. So we overthrew a government, contrary to a promise that the European Union had made. And by the way, Russia, the United States, and the EU were parties to that agreement. And the United States, an hour afterwards, backed the coup. Okay, so everyone's got a little bit to answer for. In 2015, the Russians did not say, we want the Donbass back.
So anyways, you get the idea, stuff that I talk about. Some of the stuff I didn't know. But America, we're the evil empire. And, you know, all these other countries want to be the number one power in the world. China, Russia have not legitimate shots, but they're up there, right? But America, you know, we meddle in all these countries and we say that we're the hero, right? And, you know, we're not. And, like, this isn't Democrat versus Republican. This is stuff that we have to do. Evil stuff that the CIA and the military-industrial complex has to do to keep America number one. Like, there are things that we have to do that are just, like, evil and hurt other people, millions of people around the world, billions of people around the world to keep the empire chugging. And, you know, that we're all a party to that. We can all pretend that we're good people and we're against the bad people. But we're all, like, benefiting from what the bad people do. Because if they didn't do these things, America would crumble. Because the debt-based system and all these things, I mean, America and the world economy should have already crumbled years ago. And it has to do more and more evil things to keep it propped up. Interesting, MIA launches a clothing line that meant to shield the brain and body from 5G Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and more. If conspiracy theorists are wrong, good for you. She has these hats here, and they call it a tinfoil hat. But they have, you know, I have a winter hat that has some stuff in it. You know, I don't know how much it affects you when you're outdoors. But having something like this is probably going to be a must. I don't think she's the only person that has these kind of things. Things that you can wear indoors because, you know, it's cooking your brain. And it's just not your brain, it's your whole body, right? People are going to have to sleep in. You know, they have these things my wife and I have looked into where you have a mesh netting you could put over your bed, like one of those canopies. And, you know, I mean, getting out of bed would be a hassle. And, you know, right now the things are pretty expensive, but down the road that might be necessary as there's more and more. Like, what about 6G or 7G or whatever they crank out, right, in terms of these waves? And, you know, I'd like to at least try something like that and see like some kind of a Faraday cage that blocks all these signals and be able to sleep away from all this stuff, at least. I bet we would all sleep better. Just an update on this. I'm in the editing process. And a couple of things here. First of all, I think somebody sent me a video of a drone flying too close to a 5G tower, and the thing starts smoking and it drops to the ground. And I'm going to post that on my other channel whenever, that's the kind of stuff I post there, although it could be here as well. And when we looked into this, there's some cloth out there. And again, I'm not so how great it is sleeping with metal cloth around your bed, whatever it is, some kind of grounding, But I also looked in there, had this stuff to how to ground your bed to keep it from static electricity. A lot of people have metal frames on their bed, metal on their bed, and like it absorbed electricity and then it affects you all night. It's an issue, right? Because people are affected by electricity and, all these different types of waves and things like this. But, we don't even know that part is like they release 5G without posting any sort of environmental study or how it affects animal life. And there's so many animals, birds particularly, but other animals that use navigation, some sort of navigation system to make their way around. Bees do it. There's all these animals, especially flying animals, to find their way back to their homes or to migrate or whatever it is. And then you're polluting the skies with all this electromagnetic energy. And, it does something, right? It isn't like it doesn't do anything, but they just release these things. And, they're working on energetic weapons. Of course, microwaves, we know what they can do. And millimeter waves are 5G. Microwaves are 4G. So millimeter waves are even worse. And so, all of the above. And so Gavin Newsom is moving his children away from California capital so his daughter can attend $6,000 a year private school in one of the wealthiest areas in the U.S. because he sucks, right? He's destroyed California. Before they died, Muhammad said, I don't know the purpose of life. Buddha said, seek the truth. Confucius said, I am not the way. But Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus is the only one who rose from the dead. The other three are still in their grave. Well, that's according to your story, right? Confucius isn't a spiritual saint. He was a wise man. Buddha, again, they don't know anything about Buddhism. And I'm not a big fan of Buddhism for various reasons I've talked about, because they don't believe in God, but they believe in a soul and past lives. Muhammad said, I don't know the purpose of life. Jesus saying this, there's no I am, the way, the truth, and the life, right? There's no saying, that's an arrogant thing to say. And it should be looked at as such. Not that Jesus wasn't spiritual, but he had his moments of egoism. You can't say I. You can be a conduit for God. You have to humble yourself before God. And you can do nothing without God. That's how a real spiritual person thinks about any of these things. And not that Jesus was, he had his failings just like all the rest of these guys. But it's stupid to compare and contrast this way when, Jesus' best teaching was that the kingdom of heaven is within, which is something that people should think about and meditate on. We haven't checked out TikTok for Biden. Let's see this guy right here.
Y'all, I just read what Trump's Project 2025 would do to LGBTQ people, and you've got to see this. If you or someone you care about is in a same-sex marriage, Trump is planning to do everything he can to reverse marriage equality. If you're a student who identifies as LGBTQ, Trump wants to take away your protections against discrimination. If you are trans, Trump wants to prevent you from getting the health care that you need, even ban you from being able to serve in the military. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Trump is planning to take away our rights on day one, and the only way we can stop him is by voting for Joe Biden.
Boom, you can stop it by voting for Joe Biden.
What Donald Trump has to say about reproductive health care is terrifying.
Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
We're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly, and I think it's something that you'll find interesting.
His Project 2025 plan will restrict access to birth control. Restricting access to birth control? I'm fighting to protect reproductive freedom. I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade and protect your reproductive rights.
How are you going to restore it with the Supreme Court? Here, this is...
Senator, what message do you have for voters who aren't quite tuned into the election quite yet?
Ooh, Google Project 2025.
Senator, what message?
Project 2025 is a big thing there. I don't know what that is. That was some. Okay, these are bizarre videos here. They got a lot of Trump.
Joan said she was a Republican. Did you know that?
I thought she might have been a Republican.
Yeah.
I know one thing, she voted for me, according to what she said.
Okay, well, there's just one minor problem with that. Joan Rivers died 2 years before the 2016 election, a little too early for early voting.
Boom. You guys getting it with Trump and Joan Rivers. This is horrible, this Project 2025.
You can...
I mean, it's like, you got to stop this thing. Not that, I don't know who it would be better for the country. I'm not voting. And it's not like a slam dunk that Trump will be better. In fact, my wife and I were talking about this. Given his support of Israel and then the way that it was kind of worse under Trump in terms of what the liberal agenda was being pushed and these things. Like, I'm not convinced that, I wish Trump would go away, and then Biden, of course, will go away anyway. And then, you have more sucky people, because it's always going to be sucky people. You're just going to have, you're going to have the least, the best of the least intolerable person, right? Never seen again. Google Project 2025. Here we go. One nasty here.
My bitch pose is nasty. Don't ever play with the cat. That ever. My bitch pose is nasty. Don't ever play with the cat. That ever.
This is Biden's official TikTok page. This dude.
If you have student loans, then you need to see this, because this is terrifying. So Project 2025 is a 900-page book of policy plans that will be imposed if Trump is reelected, and he's coming after students. The very first sentence of Project 2025 section on education literally says the Department of Education should be eliminated. And it just gets worse. If you have FAFSA or a Pell Grant, they want to cut that. Public service loan forgiveness, gone. If Joe Biden canceled your student debt, Trump wants to completely reverse that. And Trump wants to eliminate all future student debt relief. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what Trump and the people around him are planning. The only way we can stop them is by voting for Joe Biden.
You can assume that everything that Joe Biden has done, Trump is going to try to reverse it. Like, this is, and you think, well, all the stuff that Biden did was bad, but like destroying the Department of Education probably is a bad thing, right? But okay, so I, my YouTube channel averages around 6,000 views a day, something like that, right? I make about 5,000-6,000 views per video on average, right? And I'm a nobody in terms of name recognition. I wasn't paid $24 million by CNN. I'm not a famous person, and there are and my channel is being suppressed and being shadow banned, right? And there's lots of people like me who have channels that, get between, under 20,000 views, but over, 3,000-4,000 views per video, right? That's the category Don Lemon finds himself in. 6,000 views here, 8,000 views, 5,000 views. And, he's trying to sell this stuff here. Iyengar and Don Lemon clash. Joy Gray unfiltered. Like, they're making it sound like this is, there's no clashing. There's a few of these things that use the word clash in them, right? Don Lemon and Sam Harris clash, right? There's no clashing with Don Lemon. She's a complete dope, right? They make it sound like the arguments are severe, but let's take a look at the Cenk Iyengar one here.
You know what they say, that Joe Biden is, they're saying, can't hold his what.
Can't hold his what?
That Joe...
You mean he's pooping his pants? Is that what you're saying? You can't hold his poop? Is that what you're implying, that he wears a diaper? Are you saying that about the sitting president of the United States, Don Lemons? Or are you saying people say that about it?
Joe Biden is senile. They're saying all these things. I'm not.
he was senile in 2019. Like he had signs of dementia. And, this is an important job. It isn't like it's just, a job. This is a presidential job that's supposed to be like the top job in the country, at least politically. And neither him or Trump is really qualified mentally. They both have their issues.
And all you have to do is turn on conservative media or read conservative media, and you'll hear and see all those things.
You hear that from other people.
Think you're being biased because you ran against Joe Biden. I know you don't like him, and you think whatever.
No,
I just think you're not living in reality.
You're not living in reality, like that he's somehow mentally sharp. You can say just by looking at the way he walks and his gestures and his mannerisms. To say the guy is not, not senile, or at least doesn't show signs of dementia, you're just flat out lying, right? Like he's not going to live another. I mean, he's, like 8 years. Like he's could die any day. Like he could die any day, right? Like anybody could, but he would die of just being old.
And he's definitely going to lose. I don't know how much clearer I need to be. Why do you want to lose to Trump? You make this great.
I'm not saying I want to lose to Trump. I'm just saying that's the only alternative.
Then you say, let's give.
That's the only alternative is Joe Biden.
Give up 10 points for no reason. Let's just throw 10 points away that any random Democrat would have over Biden, because we have to fall in line behind this clown, this elderly guy who's already obviously has dementia. And so, we're going to fall behind the dementia guy? Why?
Who do you want? Someone who has no name recognition?
Like this, that's not clashing. Like this guy is telling them the truth, right? Joe Biden has been senile and looks like he has dementia since at least 2019. Like you guys shouldn't have ran him then. And he was behind him then. Like, it's been 4 years since then. But it was already there. Like anybody looking at it would have seen he was wandering around stage, challenging people to push-up contests, getting angry, like for no reason, confused. He looks like a deer in headlights. I mean, just the way he walks. I mean, he's old. Like he's 80 years old. Most people are retired in their 70s. Very few people, the majority of people are retired in their 70s. Almost nobody works into their 80s, right? And not these types of jobs. If they're working in their 80s, it's like, it's stuff they do. Like there's a guy who I bought my hay from, something Badgett. He had a great name. His first name, I can't remember what it was. And he was a great guy. And he was 90 years old. And he was still bringing in hay, right? And he was physically fit and, pretty sharp. But, he couldn't be president, right? Like he couldn't handle that kind of a stressful, that kind of job where you're scrutinized and whatever it is, right? Farming's a hard job, but it's, this guy had been doing it his whole life and he was just slowed down physically. Mentally, he was still okay. But most people, by the time they're 80, most people are dead. That's past, that's the majority of people are dead by the time they're Joe Biden's age. And so this is, reality for the Democrats.
Obama,
someone who has no history.
Instead of going with the addled old man who 86% of Americans think can't finish a second term. We're spitting in the face of the American people who are clearly saying we don't want this guy.
Okay.
Does that clashing? That's Don Lemon just getting beat down at his own show.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Again, we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah.
If they wanted Joe Biden to drop out, they have enough clout, and they would say, Joe Biden, you need to drop out, and they're not saying that.
Okay, so Don, it's okay. We have a fundamental disagreement about how political figures in the establishment deliver a message.
Okay, great. I'll agree with that. Let's agree to agree on that part. We have a fundamental disagreement.
Just, this is Don Lemon's show. Of course it is, because he sucked. I mean, he sucked as a guy for CNN when he had staff writers at CNN, and now trying to be independent guy, he sucks at that as well. Okay, so before I get to the Alex Jones part and the the stuff to do with Julian Assange and some of these other things, the debate is taking place tomorrow night, but I might as well probably add something to this video about the debate because I don't think I'll post it. I got a backlog of videos already. And so there's all of that. I'm in kind of a weird position with this. I'll probably cover the debate and put it in this video, maybe at the beginning. But either way, the thing about, pre-debate, and I don't know how the thing's going to go. I'm not looking forward to debate. Everything about this election and this time, he's running these two same old guys over again. And the problem is really Trump. Because Biden was a Trump. I mean, this is what Don Lemon just said, that, he was the alternative. And the Democrats thought that Biden was their best chance to beat Trump. And, of course, when they were running Biden, COVID hadn't happened yet. If COVID didn't happen, Trump still would have been president. But for all you Trumpers, Trump sucked as a president. And Trump was my favorite president as a character. The night he was elected, the way the mainstream media, the liberal media, even Fox to some extent, but Fox wasn't, at least not acting like they were bummed, but Fox was bummed because they didn't really like Trump, and there was a problem. They had problems with Trump already, and of course they bailed on Trump in the 2020 election, but in 2016, MSNBC and CNN's reaction, and all those Hollywood celebrities and all those liberals' reaction when Trump won. And going into that election night, very few of us thought Trump was going to win. Like, I thought, at the very least, it would have been rigged against him. But their polls were against Trump going into the election night. And it was like Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. I mean, that's how it was presented. And that's why they brought in all this stuff about the fake news and all these things, because it seemed like they lost control of something they thought they had control of. I don't know. I think they probably ended up really wanting Trump, and nobody understood why, the people that make the decision, and they didn't tell Hillary, and they didn't tell the mainstream media. Whatever it was a shock to most people. And Trump, the last debate, Trump seemed to have quit. He gave up in the third debate. He wasn't into it. There was lots of evidence that Trump was, he didn't want to really be president. He just wanted the publicity. He was doing this publicity stunt in a way to, move his brand. And somehow the American people resonated with his message, the Republicans. And next thing you know, he was the Republican nominee. But it didn't seem like he really even took it seriously. He didn't have much of a ground game. He didn't have the backing of the Republican Party the way other candidates would have. But somehow he ends up winning, whatever it was. They rigged it for him, whatever the reason was. And, of course, no one liked Hillary. I mean, it was a battle between two candidates. And with Trump, what he gave them was, Hillary just had haters. Hillary had maybe 10% of the Democratic Party that were Hillary fans, right? And, most people just didn't like Hillary. She's not very likable. I mean, that happened when she lost to Obama. And Obama says, well, you're likable enough, right? And she was talking about how likable he was, because that was why she was losing him to him and to the Democrats. But, she wasn't likable. And, who knows what happened with all that. But she didn't have support the way Trump had support. Trump had haters, but he also had people who loved him. So Trump was the optimal candidate, the optimal president to divide the country. And boy, did he divide the country, right? Boy, was a country divided over him. And so there's all those things. But, Trump completely pussed out at the end. He got worked on COVID. He allowed them to, censor him and censor other people. And he had no control over the way that the election, all the things that happened. The Democratic Party and Fox News bailed on him. He made enemies all over the place. He made enemies in the intelligence community and even on the right wing. He got completely worked on all that. It was despicable the way he behaved and how he ended that, especially with the Operation Warp Speed, right, where he rolled out. Even Bill Gates said it would take till 2022 to get the vaccine up and going. But Trump rolled out this Operation Warp Speed thing just to prove he was better than the rest, that he was going to solve COVID. It was just an ego thing. He didn't care what it looked like. He didn't care the majority of Republicans and people were against all these things. And the mandates happened because of Trump, because Trump did the Operation Warp Speed. And so, again, the way it all played out that way. But Trump lost, and he, the way he went out, he should have just went away. But Trump isn't going away because he wants revenge. It's a total egotistical move on his part. He's done, right? And if he gets elected again, it's going to hurt the people that support him more than anybody else. And I'll get into that in a moment. The Trump fans are going to get, when I was talking about this with Taylor Swift, the banker's daughter's Taylor Swift, and how she abused her fans, right? She hurts the people that support her the most. Like, there's people out there, they hurt the people that are their supporters. And that's what Trump does to the Trumpers. And I'll cover that in just a moment. But this is all about revenge. And Trump doesn't care who he hurts or what happens to the country afterwards. He's on a revenge shore. And once he gets elected, he's going to tear everything that Biden did down. And whether it's going to hurt America or hurt his side or hurt the other people or whatever it's going to do. And it's just out of revenge and spite and, whatever power he gets back. And it's just going to be, you can't be that selfish. I mean, it's 100% a revenge tour, and he just scorched earth. Like, it's like a divorce where one of the person goes scorched earth on the other and doesn't care what happens to the kids or something, right? And just, loses it. And that's what Trump's like. He's really bitter about what happened in the election, all these other things, but, everything that happened for Trump was self-inflicted. Now, you can say they rigged it against him, sure, whatever it is, right? And, the whole thing's rigged anyway. The whole thing has been rigged in his favor. He was given $1 million by his dad to start his businesses, right? He was born into wealth and these things. He's somebody who had, all these advantages and things his whole life. A billionaire, ultra wealthy, TV celebrity, all the benefits, the things he said. He could just go up to women and grab them by the bonus hole and all that stuff, right? And so, that's Trump. And so, this thing happened to him. He pissed everybody off. I mean, even his friends, like he fired his friends. He couldn't keep people on his staff. He, turned on people. Chris Christie, lifelong friends. I mean, the selfishness behind the thing that happened when he got COVID and trying to blame it on Christie. And Christie sucks, but I believe Christie's story, right? Because it's totally Trump. He's petty. He's the ultimate petty person. He's the ultimate narcissist and selfish person. And, Joe Biden is worse in most ways, but Joe Biden is mostly handled. And in a time where the country's imploding anyway, you don't need a Trump. And if Trump wins, the oppositional forces, like happened the first time, that means complete censorship. They're going to go after everybody on social media. They'll be deplatforming people. They're going to go nuts over all that stuff, right? They're going to do all the things that they did before, pushing the liberal agenda, which they did before. There's going to be these BLM riots. There's going to be all those kind of things. And Trump isn't going to care about any of that stuff because he just cares about Trump, right? It's just going to create all the havoc that it happened before. It's going to be pacifying the right wing, thinking they won something. But Trump is going to be a lame duck president with no power. And they're going to push through all their agenda. It's just a nightmare scenario. There's no answer. There's no good candidates out there. There's no potential hero or potential great leader out there. There's none of that stuff. It's just trying to preserve what we have until the collapse inevitably happens, right? The system's going to collapse. Trump is going to expedite the process. Biden's expediting the process in his way, but Trump, it's going to be worse. It's just going to be bad feelings and things. You'll be disappointed if Biden's elected, but he'll die in a couple of years, and Kamala will suck, and everyone will hate her, and then that'll be whatever it is too. There'll probably be a Republican president in 4 years if there is America left. But either way, there might not be America left in, like in 2028. Like in 2028, America might be a shell of itself. Like the election's going to be the least of anybody's problems, and there could be complete breakdown by 2030, right? That's what the target date is. America is going to be, there could be World War III. All these things. Who knows what's going to happen? There's prediction in the Whispers of the Brighter World, these prophecies that are part of the Sajmark system meditation I do, that some big events happening between 2025 and 2026. And it's going to be the beginning of real severe events. Like we haven't had anything yet, even with the big thing in 2001, all these big events that have happened, this thing that's coming up and the things that follow it, polls reversing themselves, wars, whatever, nuclear, wars and things. These are, slated for the next 20 years or so. And I think it's just time for America to move on from Biden and Trump, just as characters in the show. They need to be die off, killed off, or disappear, or just, written out of the script and just ignored and move on from them. Not like there's some better thing out there, but at least it's something different than we had before. And Trump is the problem, because Biden has never been anything but Trump's, the person best they thought was best to beat Trump. Like, Biden is a Trump reaction, So anyways, let's move on to the next thing here. UN accuses Israeli forces of carrying out an extermination campaign in Gaza. You know my opinion on this, of course, but to do with the promised land. Israel believing that this land is promised them. This is their only chance. I don't care. This is their last chance to get their promised land. This is the promised land, right? This big chunk of land, here's Israel right here, this little strip of land here. And the promised land is the rest of this, right? And so it's Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, a little bit of the Persian Gulf on the Iran border in Egypt. And so this is the promised land that they're promised in the Bible. And you got to believe that they think all of this land is theirs. This is Israel. This is what Israel's supposed to be. And maybe extend it a little bit even, right? This is the empire of Israel. And this is their last chance to get it. And so they are going to get Gaza, and Gaza has all these natural resources, and they're going to get the rest of Israel. And then they have to push for these other things, and other things have to happen. There has to be complete chaos, like World War III and things going on, for them to go after all of these lands. And, whatever their strategy is, they're at least going to get Israel. And no matter what anybody says, they got to get rid of the Palestinians. And no matter, what even the U.S. says, they're going to go for it. This is their last chance to do it. Otherwise, there'll be a Palestinian state, or there'll be something happen here that'll prevent them from being able to do this in the future. America's going to be weakened. And, they're showing that they don't respect America's opinion. And, of course, Trump wins. It's over. Like, Trump will give them anything they want and support this, this genocide. So they're not backing down. There's people within the Biden's condition shocks allies at the G7 summit, with one saying it's the worst he's been ever. Well, he's senile, and it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. But going back to Israel, they have one chance here, and that's it, right? Here's the other thing. There's some more stuff here on Israel. Israeli strikes across northern Gaza kill at least 39 people, officials say. All these things are... Palestine reels from repeated strikes on humanitarian zones. And so it's being covered by all the media, right? And, they're just mildly covering this, and it's much worse than they're saying, because they're covering this, and they're very supportive of Israel, as is America. Biden's supportive of Israel. And so Trump is more so, and Kennedy is even more so. Confused Trump forgets names again and again and again in brutal supercut video. And so what they have is they're trying to make Trump the senile one. Now, Trump is breaking down mentally, because he's also reaching he's going to be 80 years old as well. Here's a supercut video.
I think you should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Dr. Ronnie Johnson, does everyone know Ronnie Johnson, congressman from Texas? He was the White House doctor. How good did Elise Stepanek do? We've endorsed Dr. Oz. We've endorsed JP, right? JD Mandel, and he's doing great. Jimmy Connors is good. He's also happy.
Mike Bolton, John Bolton is here. Mike Bolton, as you know, is in Russia. And there was progress.
Well, that's because he's thinking of Michael Bolton, the singer.
Today, I look forward to solving it.
Thank you, Steve. It was Trump's fault. It's always Trump's fault. Can it ever be like Rick Gates' fault? It's always Trump's fault, Rick. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. Nikki Haley, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything? Deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security.
So, we don't have to go through this. This is bad. As you get older, you can't remember names, like all these things. he's not nearly as bad as Joe Biden. And them running this and pretending like he's senile. Well, if he's senile, then what's Joe Biden, right? Like Joe Biden's worse. I mean, I'm not defending Trump. Like I'm saying, Trump's a nightmare. It's just the whole thing. But they won't admit that Biden's senile, and so they're boxed into a corner because they're basically saying we don't have anybody better than Joe Biden. That's what Democrats are saying. And the Republicans are saying we don't have anybody better than Donald Trump, and the people that are in the right-wing party won't vote for anybody but Trump. They're not considering anybody else but Trump. And that tells you everything you need to know about, Trump was a disaster for them. And he's going to hurt them again, like I said before. And so this is a mess, right? This is the kind of mess we're in. I mean, I don't even think the presidency means anything. Outrage over video Israeli soldiers driving with injured Palestinians strapped to a Jeep. So that happened. But I don't even believe in, the elections and the politicians. I think they're all puppets, right? Just on the surface, just in terms of the show, it's a mess. This is an incompetent mess. Giant Jerry Seinfeld's brutal comeback as anti-Israeli hecklers crash another show at Australia benefit. This is his comeback here.
We have a genius, ladies and gentlemen. He solved the Middle East. He solved it. It's the Jewish comedians. That's who we have to get. They're the ones doing everything. Yeah, go ahead, keep going. They're going to start punching you in about 3 seconds, so I would try and get all of your genius out so we can all learn from you.
So first of all, this isn't an epic comeback. And I think he had this staged and planned because he's getting heckled by people who are against the genocide. Jerry Seinfeld is completely backing Israel, and this isn't about them blaming Jewish comedians for 3,000 or 6,000-year-old conflict in the Middle East. This is them blaming him for supporting genocide and not speaking up against the atrocities, or just not saying anything, right? But he said he supported Israel 100%, and there's 40,000 Palestinians dead, half of them children, so that's what the guy's talking about. And then he says they're going to start punching you in a second. Is that what's going to happen? Like, are you inciting violence? And this isn't the only guy that feels that way, right? And so it's a horrible bit. He's not funny. I mean, it's just, it's not based in reality. And, what this guy's saying. And again, I don't believe in heckling or, it's just stupid. The whole thing's stupid. But in terms of this being an epic comeback, it isn't.
It's a comedy show, you moron.
So then he says it's a comedy show, you moron. Is it, Jerry? Because that doesn't seem like very comedic. Julian Assange leaves jail on his way to enter a plea deal with the U.S. I didn't even know he was in jail. Apparently he was in jail in England and a British prison, and he's now in a remote Pacific island he traveled through. He wanted to avoid America. He was always a CIA asset, one of those old school truthers. I can't remember the guy's name offhand. Did a report, a very investigative report. These investigative journalists who were kind of truthers, back 10 years ago. Wayne thing, maybe he was, can't remember the guy's name. But he did a very deep dive into this stuff with Julian Assange and found that he had all these CIA ties. And so, that just makes sense. Julian Assange dropping $500,000 for flight to remote island to avoid setting foot on U.S. mainland. People look at him as a hero. He's a weird guy. From the worst debater to the worthy debater, Trump changes his tune on Biden's skills because he slammed Biden before the earlier debate, said that he would drool on himself, and Biden did better. So now Trump's, changing his tune. But, either way, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, it's just, I think it's going to be depressing for anybody who has a pulse and a ability for critical thinking skills. More so than the normal debates, right? Alex Jones, bankruptcy trustee, plans to shutter Infowars and liquidate its inventory. It seems like it would be more valuable to leave Infowars on and work out some sort of payment plan. But, you know, I don't know. The whole thing's a joke. And Alex Jones is a shill, so it doesn't matter. But here, this guy, this was a Comedy Central. It's crazy. Michael Costa nails weirdest hypocrisy of Alex Jones' audience. I'm going to show you just a few of the jokes because they'll copyright everything else.
Now, it's been a year and a half since the Boner Pillsbury Doughboy was ordered to pay
Okay, that's not a funny joke. It's not a funny joke, right?
$1.5 billion to...
So you're a comedian and you're okay with that? Your job is to speak truth to power. No, no matter how much you dislike Alex Jones, him having paid $1.5 billion is just ridiculous. It's silly. Like, it can't be real. Like, he's got to be in on it. The whole thing's got to be rigged. It's just so bizarre, right? It's trying to send a message that, you know, isn't being delivered because...
Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones is losing his media empire.
This is a local news there. Then they're going to show some CNN stuff.
Infowars is dead, but how will I know which vaccines turn me gay?
That would be all of them. Kaboom! Like, that's a joke. His joke sucks. My joke is great. So the whole premise of his joke sucks, right? I mean, it's just, these are, I think this guy's supposed to be a professional comedian. He's hosting the Daily Show. But that's horrible. Like, it's not accurate. You know, there's a lot to make. I make fun of Alex Jones, and people said my videos are hilarious, right? Because there's so much fun stuff to make fun of about Alex Jones that is, you don't have to deviate from reality and exaggerate things and, you know, go against things that, I mean, at this point, you know, it's, it doesn't look good for the bloop, right? Like,
the good news here is that this shows that if you maliciously lie to the American people, you will be held accountable, like 0.3% of the time. And
so that is the truth, like some truth about it. Like, not the malicious lie that, but, you know, this idea that there's all this stuff on the internet, and what Alex Jones said about those people is mild, and it's not worth $1.45 billion if it's worth anything at all, and, you know, all of it. But it's the internet, and this is, you know, what mainstream media does, and all the things that the jokes that are said, and the, you know, the smearing of people, and all the whatever it is, right? And the, you know, this is not the norm, right? This is what happened to him is just something where it's completely out of, like, you know, it's something that happened to Trump, him, and Rudy Giuliani, and that's it, right? So then he has some CNN report. I couldn't find the CNN report. Like, it doesn't exist on the internet. It's not on YouTube or anywhere else. But this is what they were saying.
Jones spouted lies even as he drove to the hearing in Houston.
It is all a brazen...
So this is their report here. But then there's the supplements right here.
Lawsuits against me to get me off the air.
And naked opportunism, peddling supposed dietary supplements until the last moment.
If you order any products at InfoWarsStore.com, you will get them before Infowars is shut down.
So there it is. And then he makes fun of Jones's fans for buying his stuff, which is, you know, kind of right. I mean, but his jokes still suck. You know, it's still not funny. So this is how MSNBC covered it.
We're following some breaking news, everybody. We are just learning that a bankruptcy court trustee is planning to shut down and sell off Infowars, Alex Jones's media company and popular conspiracy site. The move is supposed to help
conspiracy site.
Jones pay off the $1.5 billion in legal fees that he owes the families of the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre for calling the event a hoax. Want to go right to legal analyst Carol Lamb to talk more about this. A few questions I have here for you, Carol. Explain how...
Okay, so that's it. That's Alex Jones. The update. If there's anything going on there, I can look at I'll go find the last videos. I found the last video he posts, and then we'll see what's up, right? Spies who lie, leader co-signers who were CIA contractors when they falsely implied the Hunter laptop was Russian fake. Remember all these spies who lied. This was the New York Post article. And these were all, you know, spies who lied. Of course they do. That's what they do. Spies lie. Like the rhymes, right, for a reason. Okay, so this is Alex Jones from 21 hours ago. So he's still putting out crappy content. But this is some of his other videos. Let me just show you this one here.
Government will be afraid of us. If we really get behind Assange, if we get behind a big movement right now, the government is absolutely terrified of its own people. That's why, to make it worth it, to make it worth what Assange went through, we need to finish the job and get rid of the tyranny and fight back. As long as we fight back, the governments will be afraid. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. That's for sure. That's 100%.
Okay, so this is the next day. I copied this on the Wednesday, June 26th. Today's Thursday, June 27th. I'm not going to put this up till tomorrow after the debate. And I don't know if he'll still have a channel, but it's horrible content. And this guy is brought in because Julian Assange, who Alex Jones at one point knew was a shill. You know, he had that guy, his name was, I think, Wayne Madsen or something like that. And he had some kind of report he used to do. He's kind of like a legitimate journalist who was kind of a truther. These were the kind of people Alex Jones used to have on his show. And there was another guy who got sued by Trump for calling Melania a dude. And these guys were kind of old school journalists who were more like on the truther side of things. One of the two of them made a report about how, you know, all the documentation between the links between Assange and the CIA. And he's a shill just like all the rest of them are, right? But this idea that the governments are afraid of you, this idea that the government's the problem, is something that Alex Jones has been pushing forever. And it's not really the case, right? The government sucks, but that's not because of like them being in control of everything, because they're not. We all know that, right? And so this idea that you can scare the government can only do what it can do to keep the system, the dysfunctional system going, which I say over and over again, right? Which I'll get into. Let me play the rest of this. I got an image I want to show you. But it's just, you know, he is really bad content. And he's doing this, you know, days before he gets taken off the air, still putting out all this crap, all this stuff for remedial minds, right? Fear-based people, you know, Chicken Little stuff. The sky is falling.
And Alex, thank you for the opportunity to have a chat tonight. But I'm sure there'll be plenty more conversations, and I'm sure Julian will appear very shortly on Infowars once he is safely back on Australian soil.
I have a sneaking suspicion we'll probably be on Tucker first. All right, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again, Aussie Cossack.
Thanks, Alex.
Hour number 2 straight ahead. Stay with us. They don't want this show on the air for a reason.
Is that reason because it sucks? They don't want this show on the air for a reason. It's because it sucks. That was time to hawk some gold.
When I look at Bitcoin as a historian, I don't like it because this is a money built on distrust. The central idea of Bitcoin is basically electronic gold, that we don't trust the banks, the government.
Listen to the music behind this guy. You know, this guy is obviously somebody Alex Jones is trying to, you know, he's a pro-banking guy. And Alex Jones playing this music, it's disrespectful to your audience, right? Music that creates fear, creates, you know, some sort of, you know, it's just dark music, apprehension and things like this, right? Horror, like the idea of a horror music, right? So this is like you're watching a horror movie. And people who do this manipulate their audience. Like, let your audience make up their own mind. You don't need all these bells and whistles. The story itself is compelling. You don't have to exaggerate. You don't have to build things up. But when you're a shill and you're selling things and you're working for the opposition, well, this is the kind of crap you pull, right? He doesn't respect or like his audience because he's manipulating them with music and the way he presents things.
Governments, so we don't want to give them the ability to create as much money as they like, so we create this Bitcoin. It's a currency of distrust.
Of you.
I do think that the future belongs to electronic money, but what we've seen over the last centuries is that it's actually a good idea to give banks and governments the ability to create more and more money
for themselves
in order to build more trust within society. So I'm not sure what money would look like in 20 years or 30 years, but I hope it will be a currency of greater trust and not a currency of distrust.
Finishing up with Yuval Noah Harari and just how full of crap he is as an economist. You as an economist watching him.
So I'm watching that and I'm thinking, is this guy absolutely nuts? I mean, he is a smart guy. He's evil, but he's a smart guy. How could he say that printing money is going to bring trust when so much in our society right now is people can't afford to eat? They can't afford to pay their mortgage or their rent or buy food or do anything, right? Inflation doesn't bring trust. He's misusing the word trust. Because what he's actually saying is, hey, when we print money, we're going to be able to give you Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, handouts, stimulus. We'll raise the debt ceiling to keep this game perpetuated. We'll do all of this stuff. And so then the people will say,
so, you know, he's hawking gold here. So the first part about this is he's still selling gold. He's still hawking gold in his supplements. And presumably every cent is going to go to those families in the lawsuit. So why is he doing that? Like, why is he still hawking? He's never going to pay off the $1.5 trillion. There's no reason to go after your fans and try to manipulate them into giving you more money to hand it over to these people, right? That none of them like and want to support. So why are you still doing it? Like, why would you still be, like, his last days of the channel? You know, when you sign into the Infowars, do whatever it is, website, they want to check to see if you're a robot. Like it says here, we got the thing up here. You know, when you start, anytime you do anything there, they ask you if you're a robot. And you click no, and then it lets you in. It's like stupid. But, you know, this is like just bad content. And it's just gotten worse over the years. And they're not scared of him because he doesn't present a threat, because he's, part of the establishment. He's what they want you to think about, what they want other people to think about the truth community. They want you to think about Alex Jones. And so he's an asset, just like Trump's an asset. It's the kind of person they want you to think about when you think about being a truther or any of these things. So the other piece is this image I saw. One of my friends on Facebook posted it. I'm in a abusive relationship with the U.S. government. And so the thing is that this anti-government stuff has got to go in the truth community. The government is whatever, a reflection of the people that control it and the people that allow it to happen. But the government isn't the problem. It's always been the people, and it's everybody. You can only change yourself, and this is a message that people in the truth community don't like to hear, because they want to blame the deep state, especially the right-wing dopes, and these people who still think you can save the country and make America great again, the Trumpers and the QBs, but everybody who thinks you can save the system and doesn't want to change themselves, right? Why do you expect the lowest people, the people who hoard billions of dollars of wealth, the most selfish people, and everything they do to manipulate the system to keep themselves in power and in, whatever it is, right, through the political system and all the things that they do. Why would you expect those people to change or get rid of them and expect putting in new people who would somehow avoid all the falls, all the traps and things that they'll fall into, the ego stuff, and they wouldn't get corrupted as well, right? It's a system that doesn't function. The whole system is a bad system. You can't fix it. It's demonic. It goes against the divine forces and the natural tendencies of the good natural tendencies of human beings. And so that has to be, the system has to be, it's going to destroy itself, and then we have to build something better. And so it isn't like something that people want to hear so it doesn't sell. It's hard for you to sell your crap when you're saying things like that. But Alex Jones is just a joke, a performance artist, and CIA or one of these intelligence agency shills, and he gives them exactly what they want. So it's stupid to take him off the air, but I think, he's pretty much losing his audience. And I mean, I don't know how many people can still listen to this crap, right? At some point, you have to be like, all right, this isn't working, and this guy's annoying. I mean, there's the funny parts of Alex Jones, but it's all the fear stuff and all the lies and manipulation and all the shilling of stuff. At some point, you have to move up to the next level of comprehension. You have to rise up to a higher level of a vibrational level. And, there has to be some, okay, I believed this yesterday. What do I believe today, right? Like, I believe that the idea of an Infowars works, where you could convince all these people that are sheeple that the government, the whatever New World Order is doing whatever it's doing, deep state, and that proved not to be true, right? The whole QB movement and Alex Jones is a fraud, and you can't wake up sheeple. So that's, that doesn't work. And Alex Jones just keeps on making things worse, causing more censorship and, doing all the things that he did because that's his job, right? Same thing with Trump. And so at what point do you move to the next highest level? Or at least, maybe even jump a couple levels, right? In terms of your comprehension and ability to see what's going on. Okay, so this is, nothing that we can do to change the system. So then what do I do? Well, I could work on myself. I could, detach myself from the system the best way I can and connect to God internally, and then develop some skills and prepare my kids and the people of the future for what's coming and things like this. Instead of, hawking gold, like all this crap. People can go get gold anywhere. They don't need to buy it through Alex Jones, right? But he's been, he made like $160 million in like 3 years or something, 2 years or something like that, hawking all these products. And now he's still hawking them, even though his show is being absorbed and they're selling off the pieces. And if they delete all these videos, which are, possibly making money, but if they, they delete all these videos, which they're going to have to do, this whole platform, then all this money that could have come in from people watching old videos. I mean, the smart thing to do is leave Alex Jones up on the air and just, develop some sort of payment plan. But of course, the whole thing is rigged and fake, and Alex Jones is a part of it and all that stuff. It's just an absolute joke. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's power motto, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.